It's okay. Off your mic. It's okay. Off your mic.
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don't off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go summer us, call them hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don't come. Him go torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people where they spoil our country. So my people make we loud, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. My people make we shout, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. This one not the off in mind, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. And in the touchlight every corner, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Okay, some people be they holla say they want the power. Chai, them be promise us say we go get light and power. Them hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. See them talk say make we off mind, but thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. My people make we shout, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. This one not they off in mind, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Person where they do evil, no one make person talk. Them say that Maiyegun, that man too they talk. He too they talk. Say Maiyegun diary, he they hot like pepper. But every day, then they take money in bulk. Woman picking, they the street they hawk. Still them talk say, make we no talk. But thank God say, Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. My people make you shout, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh, yo, yo. Maiyegun làwa mọ̀.
Hello there.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀, làwọn tó dòdòdò.
Good morning to you, good afternoon to you, and good evening to you from wherever you are watching from. This is Maiyegun live.
Lórí YouTube. Maiyegun diary. Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí. Maiyegun diary. Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í kó níbẹ̀ o. Maiyegun diary.
Somebody is asking for Tifnumbu's picture when he was seen walking on the street of Paris. For everyone who have seen that video or the photo, I am here to tell you it is an old picture as well as an old video. They were taken last year, July 2022. But because I told you before, I said, welcome to Bokwari Pro Max. You are going to be dealing with photo, with ghosts. You won't see him. They would have to bring out old video, old pictures, doctored videos, doctored pictures to prove that he is alive. If you are talking about this video, I've seen. Yeah, I mean, if that's the video you're talking about, yeah, Tifnumbu walking on the street of Paris and somebody holding an umbrella over his head, the question you should be asking yourself is, why is the video 3 seconds? How come they have to share that video, even though people are beginning to ask, where is Kolu? Where is Tifnumbu? But we'll get to that part later tonight when David comes on For now, you share the broadcast. Don't buy this.
Àní ẹ̀sùn rákì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn rákì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn rákì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn rákì.
Share this broadcast, invite your friends and invite your not so friendly friends and tell them that Maiyegun today, since morning, it's been propaganda war. I don't know how many of you have somehow been served some of the propaganda. How many of you remember, last year, sometimes last year, when suddenly the police in southwest Nigeria, they said they were raising alarm over security threats. What was that? Oh, they received a threat that IPOB is coming down southern Nigeria, presenting a picture that indigenous people of Biafra are terrorists. So they sent that, they tested water last year. They said IPOB was coming to attack police stations. This was the beginning of them planting the seed of hatred, division, and bloodshot miseducated the people are all everywhere. So according to Festus Otobokeyamo, when they got cornered, because the real problem, do you know why the Obidient are threats? Is because when it comes to propaganda, give it to APC. They have propagated lies, deceit for far too long that they are beginning to believe their own lies. So if you by any chance say, oh, that's absolute nonsense, they will come for you. They control these streets years back, cooking lies, taking fake pictures, fake videos to represent Nigeria just to push their propaganda until Obidient came. So there were those. APC Egbekegbe was so aggressive that they ran PDP out of this streets totally. Any small thing, if you face them, they are called BMC, Bokwari Media Center. They are scattered everywhere. They are just on social media. Then the Obidient came. When APC, Egbekegbe, when they fire propaganda, Obidient will turn to FBI. They won't stop at exposing the fake news. They will go as far as exposing the person behind the fake news. That was what made the Obidient a threat. And if you ask, the reason why the propaganda you are going to see, Jesus, have you heard the one that Peter Obi is begging Oyedepo? Have you listened to that one? Omo, you go see propaganda, you go shake. Anyway, since morning, one Eze Ndigbo for Ajao Estate in Lagos released a video, starting first with the source of this whole madness. Wala Loma last year, here you get last, everybody go hold 2 by 2. Some go hold a stone. Wala Loma last year. This is the genesis.
As from now on, it's going to be propaganda against propaganda, word for word. We will meet them everywhere because Asiwaju has a mandate he will defend, and we're prepared to defend that mandate. Are you As from now on, it's going to be propaganda against propaganda, word for word. We will meet them everywhere because Asiwaju has a mandate he will defend, and we're prepared to defend that mandate. Are you
Brilliant. Have you noticed the way propaganda works? Is that APC Egbekegbe is so evil, right? That they are romancing terrorists. And they make terrorists look like they are not that deadly. Can't you see that they are repenting? They are not that bad. People are just trying to create problems in Nigeria. I'm talking about people that are kidnapping people, killing people, kidnapping children, raping them. They are selling people off as slaves. But in Nigeria, APC, Egbekegbe, they presented them as they are not that bad. Government will deal with them. You don't need to worry. But if you speak out against these rogues, you are more dangerous than the terrorists. Some said during the elections, terrorism somehow just died down. Immediately the election is over, the terrorism started and continued unchallenged. So they attack people, label them, profile them, and just to jail or kill them. Have you not noticed that? APC are just like thieves that you will see in Oshodi. The thief that will take your bag, take your possession, take your money, beat you up and all of that and run. When the thief is running and you are shouting, ole, 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 the thief too will be shouting, ole, ole, thief, 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 so that those who are coming, they will think the thief ran past them, so they will all start running. That's exactly what APC is. They deliberately started the religious war in Nigeria. Christians are being slaughtered, killed in northern Nigeria. But their stories and all that don't make it to the news. Nigeria continue to spend enough to blame the victim, the dead. And they are expected to remain what? Quiet and possibly dumb like that. They have no choice. They are supposed to be conquered. So they went on to go, in Nigeria. They presented northern Nigeria as like Islamic North. Like there are no Christians, there are no indigenous people who are not Muslims and all that. For political reasons, So when they were deceived that election was happening and they could probably speak up, this same APC, Egbekegbe, El Rufaya sent money to the Kaduna mosque, Kaduna sheikhs, election money. And immediately they turned around. Oh, look at these people. They want to divide Nigeria because of religion. Just as criminally as they are. Sorry about that blinking. That happens all the time. I think I'll fix that. This is the first one. The normal charlatan, Mbaka, Eye Mbaka, has come back, from warning Bokwari not to rig election for Tifnumbu to apologizing, Christians apologizing to Muslims because of what they did for an attempt to start to fight back the jihadist APC. Egbekegbe, Mbaka apologizing. The propaganda started from here, and it never reached.
I apologize on behalf of the whole men of God, the whole pastors, the whole priests, the whole bishops. I apologize. I'm not worthy to apologize for bishops, but I'm apologizing. Let the mercy of God descend. Because what we did within this political moment, a lot of indescribable political brouhaha and political jingoism and a lot of atrocities we manifested and buried the power of the sacrament beneath political forces, political hawks and vultures. And they want to vulturize the church. And we turned the church into campaign centers. We turned the church into a place for politicking. We messed up the altar. We defiled the altar of the Most High God. How do you want power to move from such altar that have been defiled? We cannot continue with such iniquities. I am Anganiru na alolo anado toa. Ayi mejoro chuku. Anazo neba kuzni madeba ge biyaka. Eba ka ge simeya. Ebe sere mada sino chuku na wana monso. Ato uye gutora. Eworo tito chuku yeze mando. O iwe chuku we dakwasi ayi. Iwe chuku kasokoza abia manam na ye bere chuku. I pray that God will forgive us. Forgive us, O Lord. Forgive us, O Lord. Forgive their church. Forgive your church. Forgive Christianity in Nigeria. We have gotten it wrong this time. Amen.
Yeah, that's how propaganda works, okay? Just pay attention. They don't just happen overnight so that you'll be overwhelmed. Like, oh, this is too much. Oh, I can see through everything. No. Propaganda comes in piecemeal, okay? First, you have a supposed mouthpiece of people, supposed men of God, okay? They will begin to what? To cower. You will think they are doing it because they are men of God and all that. No. They are trying to get into your psyches to make you feel guilty. You need to feel guilty that in 8 years, APC, Egbekegbe, they threaten every fabric of Nigeria, right? Under APC, Egbekegbe, they monitored jihadists, Islamic jihadists, right? Run amok and then kill Nigerians. The same people are saying, if you say anything about that, you are the enemy. While the terrorists are getting what? They're getting packaged for repentance. Their victims are still very much living in IDP camps. People are being slaughtered. Bishops were kidnapped. Reverend fathers were kidnapped. Because of their faith, they were slaughtered. But you can't talk about it. The terrorists are living large. We are seeing that the citizens they become second-class citizens in their own country. People are now asking, is the government of Nigeria protecting terrorists, or they are supposed to defend Nigerians? People are being sent to jail, right, for expressing their displeasure with what APC have done with Nigeria, right? Christian communities in northern Nigeria, they are facing hell of a genocide. They are being slaughtered. Their communities are being replaced. The communities are being replaced with emirs. All this religious persecution, they are documented. They are not just hearsay. But when you listen to Pastor Prenius, you know Pastor Prenius, you are about to get cooked. That's on the face of religion, part 1. For today alone, today alone, well, that started from yesterday. This man called himself Eze Ndigbo for Ajao Estates in Lagos. And because of this video, which has further played into the book of APC, Egbekegbe. APC, Egbekegbe, they are riding on tribal division, ethnic division, especially in Yoruba land. They are doing this to the point that they are riling their base to attack Igbos. Now, an Igbo emir in Yoruba land, after all propaganda, an Igbo Eze Ndigbo of an estate in Lagos, is now, as an Igbo man, professing and say, I'm playing into the hand of those who said the Igbos are coming to take over Lagos. If APC lose Lagos, IPOB will take over Lagos and all of that. Ajao Estate that doesn't have any major markets. Ajao Estate that is mostly residential. Ajao Estate Oba Eze had this to say. And guess what? Yes! We got them. No, you didn't. It is part of your propaganda. Just listen.
IPOB We will invite them.
Period. Hey.
And that is part of what we can be doing for them. We secure them jobs. None of IPOBs have not, they have no jobs. Those IPOBs, we all of them, we protect all our shops and we have to pay them. We have to mobilize for that. We have to do that. We must have our own security so that they will stop attacking us in the midnight, in the morning, in the afternoon. They will stop attacking us in emergency. Yes. When they discover that we have our own security, before they will come to take time, they will know that we have our own men there. I'm not saying a single word to be hiding. I don't hide my words. Let my words go by. And part of this thing that people must get their right.
Do you see that? That's how propaganda works. Oh, he's a passionate man. He's talking about, how to protect Igbos in Lagos and all of that, and our shops and all of that. Or do you know that could have been presented more without playing into the rhetorics of APC? All they needed is just to have that video. And they can go back and tell those, right, that they did everything to brainwash. Their Igbos are coming to take their land. They are coming to chase their Obas away. It plays into their textbook. Right? That's another one, Abi. There is more. Just later this afternoon, there is this trending audio. It's called the phone conversation between Obi and Oyedepo. You see, all of this, majority of you will get to know later. In fact, if I have something to tell you to go and possibly read about, that is going to be the 1983 elections and then the 1984 coup. Just read all the scenarios, the situation of Nigeria before all of that, and then maybe all this that is playing or about to play out will make sense to you. As a diary, Maiyegun's diary political, I recorded, I would say we followed all of these candidates during their elections, okay? I remember covering Kolu in Lagos, Atifku in Jadabi, what's that place called again? Kwakwanso in Kwakwanso, Kano. I remember also covering Obi himself in Agulu and some others like that. If you go back to the day before that, but something is going on, fishy. There is a guy that works in People's Gazettes. If you know People's Gazettes, they are kind of investigative, sensational, clickbait sometimes kind of platform. But they do get their hands on some legit stuffs that have stood the test of time. But the broken news, they said Peter Obi was begging Oyedepo to please mobilize for him and pray for him so that he can win. Because this is religious war that is currently in Onitsha where he wants to vote. I will let you listen and be the judge while we wait for David. So David told me that he has a bit of neck pain. Okay, so is is a little bit indisposed. That is not indisposed. So he's putting himself up together, and then he's going to join us. So I'm talking about the propagandas of today. Part of why David is important tonight to take us into his world of investigative journalism, the raw one, the verifiable one. In fact, a particular one of them, which is the making of the drug lord, who wants to be president of Nigeria, who is now the president-elect, by the way. However, let me play you that. I think I still have it. I want you to listen to every word. Later in the broadcast, maybe I will share it. So there is something about this. Last week, we got the report that the Chief Justice of Nigeria was seen in London, and he was there to meet with Tinubu. Okay, that fitting when they released the image of the Chief Justice, even though that picture was taken like 9 days before the breaking news, and it was taken at the airport, right? But nothing more was given. But a lot of us who know how they run their things and how things went behind the scene, we were able to, in fact, establish that the Chief Justice of Nigeria was in fact in London. And indeed, he did meet with the Tifnumbu people. But nothing more concrete. Here you get, they were able to actually like cover that. In fact, they said the meeting happened even days before that breaking news, by the way. Anyway, but there was a guy who was doing that report. The guy is a PDP apologist. He is a mechanite. The articulator, the articulated Mugu, the articulated fraudsters, the articulated morons is one of them, and he's a journalist. So what he did was so clever, okay? First, he released that of the CJN. Trust the Obidient. They fed fat on it. We must investigate him. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? As that was going on, he dropped another bombshell. Peter Obi begged Oyedepo to save him or something like that, to help him mobilize for vote a day before election, because it is religious war. And I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do is that I am just going to share that with you. And when I have the Africa Weekly founder, the publisher, David Hundeyin, and he's also an award-winning investigative journalist, right? He is probably going to help us interpret this too at a point. Now, you be the judge. If you haven't heard this, please listen.
Good morning, Daddy.
Praise the Lord. How are you, sir?
Fine, Daddy. Good morning, Daddy.
Amen. In Jesus' name, we are going to get a bright result.
Thank you, Daddy. When I hear this your call and prayers, Daddy is very dear to me. God. And like I keep saying, if this works, you people will never regret this support.
Amen. Amen.
You know,
we look forward to God's intervention.
Thank you, Daddy.
We look forward to God's intervention.
Thank you, Daddy.
We look forward to God's intervention.
Amen, Daddy. Daddy, I need you to speak to the people in the Southwest, your people in the Southwest, and Kwara.
Okay. I've been in touch with Kwara people.
The Christians in the Southwest and Kwara. This is a religious war.
I believe that. You know, I did the release, Nigeria going forward.
Yes.
And I'm coming out with the second one today.
Thank you, Daddy.
I wanted it out before when they won't have any time to do damage control.
Thank you, Daddy.
So, but in the name of Jesus, this project shall succeed.
Amen.
You know what I said into this one? A sickly nation like Nigeria will require a strong and healthy personality.
Thank you, sir.
And I said anyone whose source of words cannot be verified should not have access to governance, particularly in a draining economy like Nigeria. So all we are doing is appealing to the wisdom and conscience of people.
Thank you, Daddy.
To know where to go.
Thank you, Daddy.
But I want to assure you in the name of Jesus that the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Daddy.
That the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Daddy.
That the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Jesus.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
So relax yourself. Don't be apprehensive. Are you in Lagos or Abuja?
I'm in Onitsha now.
Good. So you'll be there for the election?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, Daddy.
That's where to be.
Thank you, Daddy.
That's where to be.
Thank you, Daddy.
I said all Nigerians have equal stake in this
Thank you,
election.
Daddy.
Nobody has a right to claim that he's dashing something to someone.
Thank you, Daddy.
We are coming out of it.
Thank you, Daddy.
So our young family in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So how is the East generally?
It is okay. This is quiet.
Okay.
Thank
And
you,
the Middle
Daddy.
Belt, how are we doing?
Middle Belt, we're okay. But in places like Kogi, Kwara, and Niger, is a worrisome place.
Well,
As from now on, it's going to be propaganda against propaganda, word for word. We will meet them everywhere because Asiwaju has a mandate he will defend, and we're prepared to defend that mandate. Are you?
David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, that's brilliant. How are you?
Well, I'd like to say I'm fine, but well, I have been better.
Well, we'll get to that part at some point. Anyway, this is us. On Maiyegun's Diary Political, a lot of us have been following your work. I personally, right, I am one of your ardent, should I say, fan? Okay, I'm one of your fans. Okay, and this is why.
Yeah.
When we are trying to understand what is wrong with Nigeria, a lot of people don't kind of get where this generation, this young generation, the angle where we're actually coming from, that is prompting this reaction and counter-reaction. Now that they know better in the political space the political stuff of Nigeria, a lot of the older generation don't understand. You as a person, I'm sorry that I'm just rushing straight into it, okay? However, you as a person, you have put your own life, career on the line, exposing what is really wrong with Nigeria, right? So, is it all right if I ask that so far so good, with what you have exposed so far so good, us ending up with Tifnumbu if that happens, right? Like, would you say you are, in a way, kind of disappointed to start with? And what's the consequences? Let's start from there. What's the consequences of us having to live under that toga of Tifnumbu presidency with what we know? Let's start.
So very unfortunately, when you were talking, I don't know whether it was my internet, there was a glitch. So I lost you for about 10 seconds. So if you could go back about 10, 15 seconds.
Okay, let me just put a summary. I was talking about us as a younger generation now challenging the old order. While the old order feels like we are just like an angry, mob, so to say, who don't really understand the complexity of Nigeria. But with somebody like yourself, who has invested so much in exposing the rot that a lot of us actually use as material to educate other people what is wrong with Nigeria, right? So you as a young person today, so I think we should just put it like you as a young person today, would you say you are disappointed? And if yes, which I believe, right? What is that consequences of us, despite all that fight, living under Tifnumbu's presidency, knowing what we know and where we are? Starting from you, Baba. Did you hear that?
Well, I think I got most of it this time. So from what I heard, you're basically asking from my perspective as a young person, what is it about the potential of a Tinubu presidency that elicits such a strongly negative reaction? From my point of view, I think that's the general thrust of what you're asking. Yeah. And there are many answers to that question, but I think so. Let me start from the most immediate answer. The most immediate answer is, first of all, if we call ourselves an electoral democracy, which means that we choose our own leaders, we hold elections, and the result of that election is what determines who becomes the leader. And then we had an election, or what was supposed to be an election, and we categorically did not choose this person. We did not vote for this person. And then this person is declared winner. This person basically imposes himself on a country like Nigeria. Even if he was he was an angel, even if he was a great candidate, even if he would have been a good president, if the people do not choose you and you impose yourself, first of all, that means that it's no longer an electoral democracy. first of all, right? It's from that point on, it has become a dictatorship. And I think I've forgotten who it was that said this, but it's been argued credibly that a civilian dictatorship is actually even worse than a military dictatorship, because a military dictatorship is one which finds it very difficult to gain any kind of local or international credibility, because everybody knows that these are jackbooted soldiers who should be in the barracks, who are pretending to lead a country. Nobody takes them serious. But when it's a civilian who wears the affectations of a democracy, a country that has the institutions of a democracy, holds elections or things that resemble elections, has a Freedom of Information Act on paper, has separation of powers on paper, has a sovereign constitution on paper, has all the paraphernalia of a democracy, but it's just not being run as a democracy. How do you want to fight it? Which is why some people insist that a civilian dictatorship is actually much worse than a military dictatorship. So from the moment where we are now seriously having this conversation now, that not only did this person not win the election, because I don't think it's the first time in Nigeria's history that somebody didn't necessarily win an election and they got declared the winner. But I think this is the first time where somebody has been this roundly rejected by the public, and then somehow has still managed to try to get to the cusp of imposing himself. So that's danger number one. We will no longer be able to refer to ourselves as a democracy. Now, following on from that is danger number two. When a government comes into power, knowing fully well that it does not have these mandates, it has no real legitimacy, it shouldn't be in office, and it's got there through strategic deployment of bribery and violence. When this government gets into office, there is no reason to expect that this government is going to do anything constructive for the total period of its tenure, because why would it? Right? If the people chose you, if the people gave you their mandate, that means that you have a burden of expectation on you. But when the people didn't choose you and the people didn't give you their mandate, and you got into office anyway, you don't owe the people anything. It's as simple as that. So
now,
you
let's
go in there
this way, David. Sorry to cut you short. Okay, before I actually miss that, in a way, one of your works, apart from the a big one that I so much respect you for, the genocide in Southern Kaduna, right? We'll probably get to that part at some point. I mean, how powerful could Tinubu be to have taken over all institutions that could have actually really, if they are doing their jobs, we won't get to this stage at all. So for somebody like yourself, how rotten is that system for somebody like Tinubu to actually maneuver all institutions for so long to become to the point of taking over INEC and become president-elect of Nigeria? How powerful is he in your own investigative journalist perspective? How powerful is he?
The very funny thing about this is I was having that exact conversation with somebody who's I won't mention his name, but he used to be a member of Nadeco in the 90s alongside Tinubu a few days ago. And we actually have this conversation where I asked him this question, that so you're telling me that in this space of maybe 30 years between the 90s and now, this person has gone from being somebody who, at least on paper, fled Nigeria, went into exile, was an outsider, like was not part of the establishment on paper. In 30 years, he has gone from being a total rank outsider with no with no pedigree within the security establishment, which still has such huge influence in Nigeria. In the 30 years, he has gone from that to becoming the establishment himself. So what does that tell us about how useless the Nigerian security services actually are? So the military, the DSS, the NIA, the DIA, I mean, that these alphabet, what do you call them, alphabet soup agencies, these intelligence security agencies that exist and have huge budgets, and people who run them are very powerful. That means that they're all just paper tigers, because you basically have someone who, first of all, where did he even come from? How did he get into Nigerian politics? The story is still so murky. He just appeared in 1991 with no prior pedigree whatsoever, and ran for senator of Lagos West. And somehow we won that election, somehow, from nowhere. There's no pedigree backing him. There's no record of achievement, nothing, just money. That's it. Where did the money come from? Nobody knows. It just appeared. And then, okay, the June 12th annulment happened. And then his attempt to ingratiate himself with Abacha didn't work out. Then he claims he fled the country, went into exile in the UK and all of that. He came back in 1998, reinvented himself as some sort of hero, which he wasn't, and spent 8 years in office and entrenched himself as like the de facto godfather of Lagos. I can understand that. But between 2007 and 2023, how is it that this person who hasn't even been in office has been allowed to accumulate so much influence across all these systems? What that tells me is that the Nigerian system doesn't actually have anyone in charge, or doesn't really have any group of people in charge. It's a runaway train, which is just speeding downhill. And there's nobody driving it. There's no adults in the room. There's nobody who is actually saying, okay, this is some sort of red line that can't be crossed. No matter how many things are wrong with Nigeria, at least we have to make sure that some very, very basic things don't go wrong again, so that we don't get another situation again. And what this tells us, so we absolutely find ourselves in another Abacha Babangida situation again. If someone like this could have wormed his way to the very center of Nigeria's establishment in full view of everyone, in full view over the less than 20 years, then what that tells me is that we're all just sitting ducks, really, in that country.
And what does this mean? Because see, Nigeria is known as, well, they will say Nigeria is fantastically corrupt, right? In fact, it seems to be a taboo, right, for Nigerians if their leaders are not corrupt. It's like a crime. Why would you not? Even if you don't want to. The system is built in a way that you will be criminally enriched.
Yeah.
Sure, you get. So, we had that toga for so long. We've had it. And people have been saying, they need Nigeria need leader. They need somebody that is actually leader. That when you are called leader, that means people accept you as theirs, including your flaws. But we've never had anybody accused of drug running, including conviction. Is it true that when that investigation was going on in America, including the trial, that was also the same moment Tinubu was running for senator in Nigeria? So that was the reason why when others were convicted, he got his own indictment easily because he was not even in America. Is that true? Hi, David. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's 100% true.
It is true.
Yes, I can
now,
hear you.
Now, back to my
again, no
question.
one has to take my word.
Right?
No one has to take my word for it
is,
because the documents exist.
You're gonna go into details now. So back to my main question. If that is true, then what does it really mean to have a narco convicted president for already battered image? I mean, the image of a country that has already been battered historically. What does this mean in a new trend of things for an average Nigerian abroad? David.
So the key thing that people need to understand about why this is such a bad thing for ordinary Nigerians, both in the country and outside the country, is that you'll be surprised. I mean, you will be surprised because you live in the diaspora. So obviously you see these things on a daily basis. But maybe if you don't live outside Nigeria, you might not know this, but you might be surprised to find out how many processes that affect your life as a diasporan that are not really based on any real scientific examination of facts. It's just perception. There are so many processes like that. For example, the reputation the Nigerians supposedly have for cybercrime. If you had to actually look at the real data, Nigeria is not in the world's top 12 or 13 countries for cybercrime. But the point is, nobody cares about the data. The perception is the only important thing. So once you say you're a Nigerian anywhere in the world, the first thing they will think, one of the first things they will think of is, Nigerian prince, Nigerian scammer. Meanwhile, the actual data does not suggest that Nigerians are outsized fraudsters or criminals in any way. I mean, long before you get to Nigeria on the list, you will talk about the US, UK, Brazil, North Korea, Russia. Those are the big hitters. Nigeria is, it's not in the big league, but that perception has very real consequences for you when you are trying to travel, when you're applying for visas, when you're applying for jobs. I know someone, he's a friend of mine. He's in Aberdeen in the UK. So he completed a master's program sometime last year. Yeah, he did a master's in cybersecurity. This is a very highly qualified computer programmer. He did his first degree in computer science. He did his master's at Aberdeen in cybersecurity, and for about 8 months, he wasn't able to nail down a job, like a proper job in the UK. He found himself doing like security work and all sorts of things. And no one ever came out and told him, because in the UK it's illegal to, at least to show that you are discriminating. No one ever came out and told him clearly. But it was hinted on a number of occasions that, look, okay, you've done very well on this assessment, you've done very well on this interview, but like this is a bank. And basically, before we're going to hire you to work on our cybersecurity team, we have to do reference checks. And they start making all those kinds of comments.
Taking up, upping the scale for him and all that.
Exactly.
Now telling him that they are doing all that because he's from Nigeria. Perception.
Exactly. So when you then have somebody, a head of state, who is not just linked, but very clearly and credibly associated with not just any kind of drug trafficking, but heroin trafficking. Heroin, which is the very worst of all the drugs. It's worse than crack cocaine. It's the very worst, right? If you God forbid, if you have a relative who is ever going to get addicted to drugs, it's better for that relative to be addicted to crack cocaine than to heroin, because heroin makes the user physically dependent on it to the point where if you stop taking it, you will die. So even when they're treating heroin addicts, they treat them by slowly reducing their dosage, but they have to keep on giving it to them, because if they go cold turkey, they will die. That's how terrible, that's how disastrous heroin is to the human anatomy. And that's the kind of drug that this person was not just involved in trafficking, but was banking the proceeds. Like when you talk about a kingpin, that's the person who is actually making the big money from it. So I'm not talking about the dealers on the streets who are banking $30,000, $40,000. Not those people. The kingpin who has $1, $2, $3 million in their accounts. That is who this person is, that supposedly is about to become the Nigerian president. When that happens, when this man is sworn in, if he's sworn in, I hope he isn't, but if he's sworn in, that's when all the global media that has either been ignoring this story or just pussyfooting around it, that's when they will start. Because trust me, they are aware.
Sure.
They are aware. Sure. And I'm not just saying this as a matter of my opinion. I'm saying this as a matter of when you have all these journalists from like the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, all these people, the ones who write on drugs and the ones who write on African issues. Ever since I published this story last year, they've all been following me. They won't say anything. They just follow you.
I know.
They've read the story. Obviously, they've gone and done their own research. They've all sent their own FYAs. All of them, I can tell you right now, all the judges and the authorities, the DEA, the court systems, they are all doing quiet correspondence with them. If this man is sworn in, that's when you start seeing these stories. Because the journalists, one thing people need to understand about journalists is that, especially in the Western world, how a journalist makes their name is by doing a story that makes a huge splash. So that's what they want. So currently, for them, it's not a big enough story because, this one is a presidential candidate in Nigeria, or is Nigerian president-elect. No. When it becomes a Nigerian president, then it becomes a big story that you become the journalist who took down the Nigerian president. That's what they want. Unfortunately, they're not going to take him down because if he has been sworn in, he has been sworn in.
Yeah, that's
but the point is exactly. But the point is that that's the perception that will be created by that thing. It's not Tinubu is going to affect. Tinubu is going to, if he doesn't have already, he's going to have a diplomatic passport. Nobody's going to deny him visa.
No,
he's going to be fine. His family will be fine. the high-ranking government officials in his administration will be fine. It's you and I that will see Pepe.
Now,
We are the ones that will see Pepe.
Talking about Pepe, this is unprecedented, right? We've seen the prediction on Buhari, a genocidist himself, right? And then the type of Nigeria is currently running, the one that finally tore everybody apart. But somehow, right, they sort of hit the cord, or should I say they hit the wrong nerve in 2020. We're going to start from there soon, okay? But there is something called the Kingpin Act, David. As part of your own investigation that a lot of people actually got so much interest in, over 70 pages of court papers, documents that actually certify the conviction, not just of Tinubu, of others too. So they said the level of heroin trade in America at the time made them make law that is called the Kingpin Act, which then can automatically make them to make one, either make Nigeria or declare Nigeria a narco state, or use that compromise that they have on the government of Nigeria to do fuck all. So please enlighten me. The Kingpin Act, and then the possibility of being tagged narco states. I'm curious, please.
Okay, so I'm reading a summary of what the Kingpin Act is.
Right.
So this is going to take place. So the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act, also known as the Kingpin Act, is landmark federal legislation in the United States intended to address international narcotics trafficking by imposing U.S. sanctions on foreign persons and entities involved in the drug trade. The act allows the President of the United States and the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury to publicly identify significant foreign narcotics traffickers and to freeze their assets. The act also prohibits any United States person from conducting business with any designated foreign narcotics traffickers and provides for both civil penalties and criminal prosecution for violations. So what this act sets out to do basically is to impose personal sanctions on high-ranking individuals who are identified in the drug trade, up to and including government officials in foreign jurisdictions. The reason this act was introduced was around, I think, between the 70s and the 80s, when South and Central American countries were experiencing that period where their governments were involved in the drug trade. So you had people like Pablo Noriega in Panama, who was the head of state and was actively assisting Pablo Escobar to smuggle cocaine into the US. But nobody could really do anything to him because it's a sovereign country and he's a government official in a sovereign country. You can't issue an arrest warrant for him or something like that. So the Kingpin Act was introduced to create a legal framework in the US for them to directly sanction people who are high-ranking people in the drug trade, regardless of where in the world they are or what position they occupy. Now, the potential danger of the application of the Kingpin Act, assuming it is applied, I'm not completely convinced that it will be applied, and we'll get to why in a second. But assuming it is applied, the potential danger in this situation is you will essentially have a situation where if you're familiar with the Zimbabwe experience, when high-ranking members of the government, including the president and his cabinet, are directly sanctioned, and then that basically makes it impossible for the entire country, or for the government rather, to do this with the country that sanctioned those individuals. That becomes so. The US imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe, the UK, and I think the EU as well did at the time. And Zimbabwe overnight, from being the breadbasket of Africa, became one of the poorest countries, not just in Africa, but in the world. And also suffered this incredible hyperinflation that I think only Venezuela has ever surpassed in the history of hyperinflation. So those, when high-ranking government officials are sanctioned, those are the possible outcomes. Now, in this instance, whether the US is going to actually impose the Kingpin Act or Kingpin Act
Sorry, I think we're
exactly
having a bad network.
in the course of in the course of researching this.
Yeah, please. I think it's coming back now.
Can you hear me now?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Right. So I was saying the reason I'm not entirely convinced that the US necessarily will enforce the letter of the law in this case is because in the course of actually putting a story together, I had cause for multiple interactions with different parts of the US government. So the court system in Illinois, the court system in Maryland, the DEA, that's the Drug Enforcement Administration, which is their own version of NDLEA, the FBI, and even the CIA. And it became clear to me that they know a bit more about this person that wants to be our president than even we do. And there's a potential angle that makes this person possibly even more dangerous to us than we even realize, because there's the very real possibility that this person is what they call a Manchurian candidate, somebody that he's your president, but he's not working for you. He's working for someone else, or he's owned by or controlled by someone else.
The compromise
right?
parts now. That's the part you are delving into now. Where they can actually use it to their own advantage instead of applying the Kingpin Act, Abi?
I don't just think they will use him. I think they have used him, and I think they have used him on multiple occasions. I think this person, based on the kind of interactions that I had, and the very sort of, and I'm going to go into this in a second, the very funny energy that I was getting from different US government agencies that ordinarily shouldn't, when a journalist is reaching out on me to inquire about some random African politician, told me very clearly that these people are quite familiar with this guy in a way that is very unusual. And what then confirmed my suspicions, well, there were two things that confirmed my suspicions. First of all, this source that I mentioned earlier, who actually was one of Tinubu's associates in the so-called Nadeco in the 90s, told me categorically, I mean, I had no independent way of verifying this at the time, but he told me categorically that during the 90s, there were a number of key Nadeco figures who were actually being handled by the US Central Intelligence Agency, that's CIA, as foreign intelligence assets. And that Tinubu was one of them. He told me this categorically. And then a few months later, when just out of curiosity, I happened to be poking around some of the diplomatic cables that were leaked by WikiLeaks in 2010. If you search the keyword Bola Tinubu on those leaked cables from the 2010 WikiLeaks cables, you will see more than a dozen cables over the course of, I think, between 2001 and 2011. This man was a chatterbox. This man was constantly speaking to the US consulate, constantly giving information about this or that, constantly talking about, there's nobody whose name he did not drop. There's nobody whose name he did not mention, whether it's Body George, Obasanjo, everybody. You know, he had opinions about everything. So my personal suspicion, which this person who I'm not going to name told me categorically was the case, my personal suspicion is that this guy has been handled as an intelligence asset for years by the US establishment, and now they are sort of they're not against him becoming president, because from their point of view, maybe it's good, maybe he's malleable, he's more controllable, based on the fact that this is somebody who's president of Africa's largest economy. And bear in mind that the US right now, something you might be aware of, the stated policy of the US to Africa right now is nothing constructive in it. The entire purpose of US policy toward Africa now is to stop China from influencing Africa. So if you were looking at it from a purely rational point of view, as an American policymaker, it would kind of make sense. It would be in your interests for you to have a president in Nigeria who is beholden to you. So regardless of whether you have any positive engagement in store for Nigeria or not, you can basically blackmail this person into staying the hell away from China. And obviously, when Nigeria leads, Africa will follow, because Nigeria still has an outsized influence in the African region. So it would maybe this is adding 2 and 2 and getting 22, but it would appear to make sense from a purely rational point of view.
At this point, I mean, everything is possible now, David, right? I got
Yes.
that wiki
Yes.
leak. I don't know if you have a chance of seeing it too when I put it on the screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you? Okay. Now, this is the cable that you are talking about. I only just searched for it, like you said, search for Tinubu on WikiLeaks. So I did. And all of this cable that was actually reeling information back to the CIA government and all of that during that period, they are real. They are actually in the public. Yeah. Now, this is what will now take me to the obedience. Because something happened in 2020. And up to this moment, because of the denier, right? Therefore, there will never be healing. There are so many things wrong with Nigeria that the perpetrators have managed to pretend to move on, right? And this particular one that happened in 2020, you are one of the victims of the aftermath. You are one of those that are state-profiled targets. People that were actually chased down. Around that time, you haven't really, I don't think, or should I say, you haven't probably delved into exposing more. Because I think it was after 2020 that the Kaduna genocide report came out. Then the jihad for conflicts for jihad came after. And then the drug lord came. The 3 blockbusters came after 2020. So, and a lot of people are as well fighting back, using all they have, including mobilizing for the obedient movement today. So it's like it's all playing back and back. It seems the establishment always win. Now, factoring all we have said so far, the kind of individual we are dealing with, remembering what Buhari has shown everybody, so far so good, and what we can actually think Tinubu is capable of, do you still think, with what Obidient have also shown, right, the establishments can still be cowed, or this so fire burning can still be quenched by these deadly people? I'm sorry that my question is not actually like a question or something, right?
No,
you can get what I'm saying.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
There's something that brought all of this. There's something that sparked a level of revolution in all of us. It changed a lot of people, yourself inclusive, right? So let's start from there, where the whole inspiration started from. 2020, what happened, David?
So prior to NSARS, I was already trying. Well, I thought I was trying to do something that hadn't been done before. I thought of myself as a firebrand investigative journalist. But what happened in October 2020, you are right, it changed everybody. It definitely changed me, because so I was born in 1990. I'm a 90s baby, right? So growing up in the 1990s in Nigeria, which I'm sure you spent some of that time in Nigeria as well.
Well, I didn't live until 11 years ago. So I spent 28 years of my life there. Sure.
Yeah.
I can relate.
So, growing up during that era, almost every day you see a newspaper headline, some hired assassins who everybody knew were working for Abacha, but you couldn't prove it at the time. They're always going after this person or that person. So people are just constantly going missing, and you know that they are dead, but you can't prove it. One of my earliest memories as a child, I think I was 6 years old. This was like 1996. My dad and mom were in the kitchen, and the window was open, and dad was saying something. He was making a negative comment about Abacha, and he mentioned the man's name in this very sarcastic tone, like Abacha, like. And my mom immediately like hushed him up, hushed his mouth, that the window is open, that the neighbors might hear you. Because that's how much terror we all lived in at the time. I was 6 years old, but I still remember this. I'm 32 now. So having grown up in that era, and then having witnessed the death of Abacha, the jubilations that happened, everybody was so happy. The return, well, I'd never seen democracy in Nigeria up until that point. So my first ever experience of democracy in Nigeria, and then how we started, it wasn't just something people were saying. We started seeing improvements in Nigeria, at least during the Obasanjo administration. Things actually started getting better in some important ways. Yes. In some ways, things remained exactly the same, but in some other important ways, Nigeria was actually becoming a better place. In fact, when I finished university in 2011, which was at the height of that thing they used to call Africa Rising, it was a normal expectation to have back then that when you finish university in the UK, you go back to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
It was a normal expectation to have. So when things
They
didn't
actually
work, things
returned. There were people who returned back to Nigeria because
yeah,
of exposure, like for real,
yeah,
evidently.
it was a thing. What's the term for it? Repatriation. It was a thing. So when my things didn't really work out for me the way I wanted in the UK. So in 2013, I went back to Nigeria to start afresh because it was a perfectly reasonable assumption to have at the time that Nigeria offered the opportunity for self-actualization, right?
Mm.
And even after Buhari came in, even though I knew things were going to get bad because I had an idea of who Buhari was and what he represented, I guess it's not, seeing is believing.
Right.
So you still want to, you still maintain this stubbornly optimistic part of you somewhere. Like up until that point, even though so many of my friends had left, they've gone to Canada, they've gone to the UK, they've gone to Australia, all over the place. I could have left too if I was really serious about it, but I would just say, oh yeah, me too, me too, I'll japa. But when you're dragging your feet,
I get you 100%. There's a way Nigeria will push you to that breaking point that you won't. I mean, you won't be able to like hold on anymore. Well, your case is different. In fact,
so that was what happened.
Yeah,
exactly. That was what happened in October 2020. Up until that point, I wasn't really psychologically committed to the idea that things have reached a breaking point yet. I wasn't really yet. And then NSARS happened. I remember maybe I was a bit naive at the time when the protests were going on, because I protested both in Lagos and in Abuja. I didn't really realize how dangerous what I was doing was. The fact that when I was going to Abuja to protest, I announced myself. I made a big show of it. I posted my flight ticket on Twitter. It was so like, there are things I think back now and I'm like, was I trying to get killed? When I arrived in Abuja, I took a selfie at the door of the plane.
It was fun. People were like, it was an experience for the young people until they brought
it up. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So October 10, October 11, even though they chased us, they beat us up, they shot in the air, they used tear gas on us. But even then, the idea that these people were going to do like Tiananmen Square on us, no now. Surely, even these people have a line that they cannot cross. Even Abacha did not do that. And then I can't forget it, that evening of October 20, because during that afternoon when they sent people to remove the CCTV cameras from the toll gate, I guess we kind of suspected that something was going to happen. But what I had in mind was they would send military people to shoot in the air and start flogging people with horsewhip. That's what I thought. They would throw tear gas and scatter everybody, that kind of, and then they will now like put a huge military presence at the gates to stop people from coming back. That's what I thought they were going to do. And I was actually taking a nap, and it was my phone that woke me up. It was a friend who was calling, and this guy was in Abuja, and he was calling me, and he said, and where I was staying at the time, my flat was like 2 kilometers away from Lekki toll gate. It was like near Chevron, right? And the guy was like, they are shooting people at Lekki toll gate. I said, you're lying. I went to Twitter. Next thing I started seeing live video. They said, go to DJ Switch's Instagram. I went there, and I think that was where the illusion finally broke. Because what I was witnessing, I was watching a massacre live and direct.
Is
it's
this
the kind of thing?
Is this what we have been like, sort of living off for the past 20 days until now? I can imagine
the kind of thing that you watch on like History Channel. That sometime in 1980 something, Egyptian dictator Abdel Nasser did a massacre and so on. So that's the kind of, it seems very distant and far away, and then here it is happening 2 kilometers away from you. And immediately it happened, I remember thinking to myself, this my friend who called, one of the very first things he said to me after he called was, when are you leaving Nigeria? And the reason he made that comment, two of us were thinking the same way that time, was that now that it has got to the point that these guys have started shooting people in the street, citizens, unarmed civilians. They started doing that. Then, logically, the next set of people that are going to come after is the people who are going to make any kind of noise about it, or the people who are going to call them out. So they will come after journalists, they will come after academics, they will come after trade unionists, they will go after activists, feminists, anybody who offers any kind of loud opinion to the contrary of what they want. They're going to come after them. So I remember it was that night, actually, that I started making my plans finally to exit Nigeria. I left Nigeria November 8th, which was just over 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. But it was that night, actually, that I actually started making my plans.
Like, you actually need to move now.
Yeah, yeah. So after, and you are right, when that happened, everything changed. Even the way I viewed my work, it changed. My work stopped being fun for me. I started considering my work to be a fight.
An act of activism or something like that.
Yeah, it's an act of defiance. That's how I started seeing my work. Because up until that point, I was living in Lagos. So, I would write about people, and then at the weekend, we all still hang out at the same bar in Lekki or whatever. And even though they don't like me or whatever, but it wasn't that serious. But for the first time, it started feeling as if, okay, it is that serious now. There's life and death involved in this. And that's when some of the threats that I had received before, it now became real to me that, okay, this person wasn't just talking. That time, these people are actually capable of doing that. I remember I had an uncle, I'm not going to mention his name, but we shared the same surname anyway. So he used to be a deputy comptroller general of immigration.
Right.
And he is obviously he's a part, he gets contracts from Abuja. He's a proper APC man, right? And I think it was 2019. I traveled to Badagry to celebrate the Salah, the family, the extended. And this man who had never really said a word to me, because he came with his full convoy and everything, he came specifically for me. And he said, we've been seeing all those things you've been writing. That he now touched the glasses on my face. I can't forget this thing. And he said, have you been to DSS headquarters in Abuja? That the DSS underground cell, that it goes for seven stories underground. That with these your glasses, you will not see anything inside there. And he said it with a smile on his face. But at the time, maybe it didn't really sink in.
Just so we understand this very well. Yeah, just so we understand this very well. After eating that reality of what happened on the 20th, in fact, your first threat came from a family member. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Like, indirectly, the first threat to remind you of what they can do to you based on your activity or activities came from a family member.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But maybe I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. Maybe partly because it was a family member, and then partly because, again, I grew up in Lagos. There's a certain sense of ownership that you feel. Like, who is going to do anything to
me in Lagos?
And then October 2020 happened, and it became clear that it doesn't matter. Whoever you think you are doesn't matter. They will shoot you. They actually will. And then bear in mind, it wasn't just the fact that they shot people on October 20. People always forget that there were several massacres in the week after across Nigeria. People always forget that. So even in places like Agege, because it's always Lekki Toll Plaza, we remember. But there were more people who died in Agege than at Lekki Toll Plaza. That's always forgotten. There were other localized massacres around Lagos. There was one in Rivers State, in a place called Oyigbo. People always forget that. And many people till today are not aware that it was in January 2021, which was 3 months after the events, or 2 months after the events of that NSAS period. I think it was Sahara Reporters that put out the story at the time. There were a group of, I think, 100 women from Oyigbo who were freed from Mogadishu barracks in Abuja. So they were basically kidnapped from Oyigbo. They were taken to a barracks nearby. They were kept in custody. They were raped multiple times. And then they were transferred to Abuja, to Mogadishu barracks in Abuja, where they were raped for weeks until an NGO took up the case. And then they all got released en masse in January 2021. That particular story, for whatever reason, didn't really get any traction. But if you Google it, it's there. So these were the things that made me understand that I've been living in a fantasy. I've been living in a delusion. What I thought Nigeria was, is not it at all. Nigeria is still very much is that place I knew in the 1990s. It's still that place. The brief Obasanjo good luck thing was it was a flash in the pan. We have now fully regressed back to mean. We are where we were when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
So it was a very
you know something, right? I have followed a lot, and tonight that you are sharing your evening with us, which indeed is quite interesting, detailed, because we are going to get to the part where your work, after all of that, I've started making so much impact, right, that you became a direct target for, in fact, not just APC, right, including their sympathizers, including the government of Nigeria, Kaduna in particular. I know the story of Kaduna, El Rufaya, the little finger, doing all is what they know how to do best, finding a corrupt institution outside Nigeria that they could buy sort of a goodwill with, right? But, you know, there was so much warning, because that's what I see in you. Your work are always to warn us. You get what I mean? To stop living in that world that the politicians, as well as the government, wherever government it is, especially APC in general, I mean in particular, that to not accept the world they are trying to create because it's not real, right?
Yeah.
So that's why in your work, like you said, it became a tool of advanced defiance. You said, right? So now you warned us, but somehow they're really good. But in a way, for 3 or let's say up to 3 years or over 2 years now, but there is something they were unable to kill in people, despite all of that and the deniers that followed. And I think it's that fighting spirit that actually birthed, or should I say the spirit that birthed the protests, the answers, or the one that was born immediately after the people were martyred that day.
Yes.
Yeah. So your work became a big threat that kept, or should I say, your work became one of the burning flame that those who were supposed to have been killed with their spirit, everything killed, with the level of violence unleashed on them, and it gave birth to Obidient. I mean, today, that same Obidient is now under never seen before propaganda attack. They took it to an election. What were you expecting, David? Like, you became a big target, right? Yeah. And at that point, you knew you were actually fighting a cause. It's either the establishment crumbles and something new starts, or we are all doomed.
Yeah.
But here we are, right? What were you expecting in the last 10 months?
So, the first thing I will admit is I was not expecting the election to be cartoonishly rigged the way it was, because an election being rigged in Nigeria is not headline news, but the very cartoonish way it was done, I wasn't expecting that. I thought because of the amount of scrutiny that this election was going to be facing, and the technology that was going to be deployed, and the sheer amount of eyeballs, local and international, that these people would find, at least if they would fiddle with it, so they're always going to fiddle with it, they would find another way to do it. Instead, it was the same old. You know, you were seeing those visuals of result sheets. Someone, the 100 votes for Labour Party, someone will cancel the second 0 and add 90 to the APC, and you see the cancellation or the TPEX. And it was like, what is this? Really? Like, I honestly did not expect that. I thought they were going to be smarter about it. I thought it would be maybe when this thing is uploaded from the polling unit via the beavers to the server, they'll have some backdoor access to the server where they'll fiddle with the numbers. I thought that's how they were going to do it. I didn't know it was going to be this very
like on in a way that you even feel like you can't even rig professionally. You can't even rig properly.
Yeah, it wasn't even the fact that it was.
Yeah, you feel the rigging. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't even the fact that it was brazen, it was how amateurish it was. That what this told me is that these people were actually, as malevolent as they are, I gave them too much credit. They don't have as much ability as I thought they had, because when it came down to it, all they could do was just use violence and gra. And then it made an announcement at 4 a.m., literally 4 a.m.
in the morning.
And then the man, immediately he was announced as president-elect. Next thing, he ran away. They had been looking for him to serve him the papers for the petition. He has been dodging. It was like, really? So your plan is just to spam all of us, to just run away, and then maybe like 48 hours to your inauguration, you will now sneak into the country. And like, really, is that how you plan to run a country? By being some sort of, I don't know, minority government or something? How do you imagine this is going to work exactly? And which is why I personally am of the opinion that if this man is actually sworn in, putting aside all the implications for us as Nigerians, he is not. And I'm being very generous when I say this. If he lasts for 18 months in office, I will be very surprised. Like, and this is not even about his health or something. I'm talking about the people around him, right? This man does not have.
You get what I mean? I was coming to that. Yeah, I told people. I said one of the people who made Buhari to escape a lot of things that he got away with are the Tinubu's people with the propaganda and everything they have been pushing.
Exactly.
They pushed the propaganda to the point that at some point, even the Northerners were surprised. Like,
yes,
you are so cold-hearted, though. Like, and if you monitor this, right, because they have been the engine room of the propaganda, yeah, they have now taught the Northerners to some extent, right, to also kind of repeat some vile messages that ordinarily, before 2015, a Northerner will be like, no, not that bad. No, I won't do that. But now, these days,
I'm very happy that you made the link to 2015, because it was 2015 that all of
that was Genesis. That's Genesis. A lot of people have sort of forgotten, because this is the world we live in now. This is our world now. It's about who can run anybody out of town violently, and the people who does it better is the government. Sure, you get. But there is something I am so curious about, and I bet a lot of people watching us too will be interested. You did a wonderful investigation on the genesis of terrorism in Nigeria. You didn't just do that. You presented evidence. You mentioned names. And not just that, you publicly, repeatedly, challenged them to sue you if there's any iota of lie or defamation in your publication up to this day. Rather, they only came for your person, who you are or who you should be, and all of that. And then they move on. Then you drop this bombshell, something that ordinarily, morally, for those who are propagating religious this and that, morally, they should kind of question their own support of this same man. But Tinubu and gang, with the success of propaganda over the years, Baba, now they have planned to rule Nigeria. So talking about people around him, with you as an investigative journalist, Baba, the level of propaganda we are seeing right now, what do you think is going to be like when they finally grab that power? We mentioned the media will be targeted. Intelligent academia will be targeted. A lot of us will be targeted. Can you explain it from the perspective of an investigative journalist who have done a lot on these people? Just so we know what we are up against, please.
So these are the kind of people who, when they see the story of that Saudi journalist who was dissolved in acid in Turkey, Jamal Khashoggi, when they see that story, their reaction isn't sympathy or disgust. Their reaction is admiration. It would be nice to be able to have that kind of capacity. to pull off something like that. These are people who would love to be able to go after even people in the diaspora. I mean, they have tried to come after me, not just come after my reputation, but come after me physically, even outside Nigeria. They have tried. Like it wasn't you that I mentioned this to. It was a different platform. But I was last year, after I did the story on him, and then especially after I released it in a documentary format, which made it open to a whole new audience. They held a Zoom meeting about me. They called it APC Renewed Hope something Horizon. They basically had a Zoom meeting where they were discussing people that they said were supposedly prominent Obedients that needed to be neutralized. And I was discussed there, and they hired a security consultant. They paid somebody money to track me down.
Really?
And the plan, they paid somebody money to track. I think the person scammed them because, according to the information I received, this person claimed that he had tracked me to an address in Johannesburg. I've never been to South Africa in my life, so I don't know which person he say he tracked down. But so they hired somebody and they paid him money.
Tracked you down to Johannesburg in South Africa. Yeah. Obviously, a scam. Please continue.
Well, the person claimed he tracked me down to a hotel in Johannesburg, and the idea was basically to stage some kind of an accident.
When they grab you, like what were they going to do to you? Kashugi you?
The idea was to make it look like an accident, basically, or to make it look like I killed myself, according to the information that I received. So, and apparently there's still a price on my head. There's still a figure on my head. So these are the kind of people we are dealing with. So in addition to going after people with voices, the first thing they're going to come after. So I'm sure you know the Nigerian media is pretty much already inside their pockets, pretty much already sewn up. They don't even need to go after the media, because they already control it financially. But what they're going to come after is the internet space. They're going to come after social media. And when I say social media, I'm not just talking about Twitter and Facebook. I'm talking about YouTube, like the platform where this conversation is going to be hosted. I'm talking about the relatively open access version of the internet that we have now. They're going to come after it. People, again, there are so many stories that people forget. People forget that in June 2021, the week after the Buhari government announced the Twitter ban, and this was reported by FIJ. Again, I don't know why this story didn't get big. Lai Mohammed held a meeting with Chinese government officials in Abuja, and the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the possibility of cooperation between Nigeria and China in creating a version of China's Golden Shield internet censorship system for Nigeria. Now, apparently, the reason nothing really came of it at the time was because the money that was going to be involved, because Nigeria would have had to pay China to do that. The money that was involved, Nigeria didn't have the money at the time. So it kind of got put on ice. But that meeting has been held. Whatever MOU they signed there is still in action.
It's just for somebody to grab it and then activate.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's one APC administration to another APC administration. So there's continuity. You understand? This man has already started appointing people into his handover committee. So these things, they did not end with Buhari. These people are going to accelerate those things. So all of the propaganda tools that they used to seize power in 2015 and then to deploy their incredible propaganda efforts in 2023, they're going to come after all of them. All of them. So the way it is in China, if you're in China, you can't, say where I am now, if you were in China, we couldn't be having this conversation because you can't use StreamYard. You can't use StreamYard, you can't use Zoom, you can't use WhatsApp video calls. All these platforms we take for granted, these ways we communicate with each other, you can't. So these are the ways that these people are going to come after the free flow of information. That's the first thing, free flow of information. Second thing, going to come after, and in my opinion, the most dangerous thing.
Would that mean that if we are talking about illegitimate person, that half of the country is saying that they don't want him, they didn't elect him, right? And somebody who is riding on this ethnic, tribal, divisive rhetorics, and at the same time pointing fingers at others of doing the same thing, we can understand, where the young Nigerians are coming from when they're upset with the system. In a democracy, they are expected or allowed to. But it has now come to a stage whereby the real headache of the APC is the obedient. They are doing so much to gaslight them, blow dog whistle, and make people think they are the real problem. Now, you know why this is dangerous, or I believe it is dangerous, is that when Buhari came, I never actually envisaged a clannish sort of government, okay? I was just expecting some old thieves to regroup and give office and all of that, and the business continues, right? But the clannishness that Tinubu and Co are building is not anyone that is of unity. We can see it. Citizens are being gaslighted to be killed. Citizens are being gaslighted and being called non-citizen enough. Now, in a one Nigeria, where we have seen the antecedent and the actions of these people, we have seen them romanticizing with a terrorist, and they are actually like targeting their own citizens, like they killed the citizens in 2020. You just said something about international espionage now. A government that is capable of sending a spy after their own citizens, sending them into exile, and the rest of that, Baba, the obedient, again, I'm just going to put it that way, okay? The obedient, how far do you think, right, they can still push, if I may just put it that way, with what we have witnessed so far, despite all this propaganda we are seeing? Because you are from Badagry, a Yoruba man. Today, that's your your indigenship is being put to question because of your expose on Tinubu. A lot of people have been told that they don't look Yoruba enough. Some have been told that they don't even speak Yoruba, therefore they are not Yoruba enough. Now we are now hearing narratives like tainted blood, half blood, and these are dangerous that I have never really witnessed during Buhari's time. Now, if they have this capacity now that they don't have the power, so from the angle of investigative journalists, which actually makes the obedient fight a kind of legitimate one at this point, right? Baba, what would you say are the chances, if I could probably put it that way, with all these propagandas? Go on.
The thing is that regardless of how much capacity for violence that these people have, at the end of the day, a state only has as much power as citizens allow it to have. It's easy to forget that Nigeria proportionally is the world's most under-policed states. Proportional to its population, Nigeria has the lowest amount. Sorry, I'm hearing my voice echoing. Lowest amount.
Continue. 70 years old man. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man. Jesus is Lord. Continue. 70 years old man.
Very sorry about that, David. Okay. I just the whole thing just froze for like 5 seconds. Okay, so I had to quickly do something behind the scene. I'm glad that I didn't lose you there. We are talking about the propaganda now unleashed on the obedience, the battle they have been fighting for months now, the one that actually rattled them enough, right, to the point that today, right, the obedience are being projected as more dangerous than the people that actually stole election.
So what I was saying was, regardless of the capacity of these people to to inflict violence on people. Where you have such an overwhelm, because it's easy to forget that the so-called obedience are not just one tiny group of people somewhere. Statistically, according to the actual outcome of the election, it's actually a majority, right? So the so-called obedience are not necessarily people who support the Labour Party or who love Peter Obi as a person. It's just people who had enough common sense to see that this is the only like remotely like livable option that there is if you want to have any kind of hope for a better life. So that's actually statistically the majority of the country. So how many people do you want to shoot? How many reputations do you want to destroy? How many people are you going to try and censor? These guys are going to stretch themselves too thin. I know this for a fact because I maybe because of my sort of exposure to this group of people in Lagos, because I grew up in and around this crowd. Tinubu himself spent years trying to convince my dad to go back to the civil service to work under him. There's a funny story behind that actually. So in the 80s, back when he was buying his first properties in Lagos, he met my dad, who was then the director of lands in Lagos, and he had like an allocation and whatnot, and it needed to be signed by the director of lands and forwarded to the governor. So what he was expecting was the usual thing of the director who ask for a gunje before he will pass it to the government. But instead, in the space of 48 hours, my dad sent both documents, didn't ask him for a single kobo. And the man was completely taken aback. He had never seen that kind of thing before. So when he came to power in 1999, between 1999 and 2006, he came to my dad 3 times, trying to convince him to come and work for him, come back to the civil service, become a PAMSEC, and then, these dreams they sell you, and then I'll push you for Senate, then, one day you might even become governor. When my dad told him no, he went for the next best option, who was a man called Benga Shafa, whom you might know, who was my dad's junior.
I know Benga Shafa.
So I grew up kind of exposed to Tinubu at a very up close, right? The man is, when people describe him as some sort of mastermind or supreme politician, I always have to hold my laughter.
Right.
This man, when he gets to Abuja, I know for a fact what is going to happen. He and his people are going to try and run Nigeria the way they run Lagos. And it's going to fail disastrously, and they might end up losing their lives for it. Because what he's going to do is that he's going to try and start pointing guns at everybody and everything. That's what he's going to try and do. He's going to try and use the MC Oluomo solution for everything, because he's going to very quickly realize that the way he has all that money in Lagos, you can bribe everybody that matters in Lagos. You can't do that in Nigeria. Nigeria has how many 100 million people we don't even know? How many people do you want to bribe? And then the Nigerian federal government public finances,
factoring in how he even came to that power, which is almost illegitimate. How is it going to be
illegitimate? You understand? So, and then the federal government doesn't have money right now. The Nigerian public finances are probably as bad as they've been since Babangida. So his only solution will be to start trying to use the MC Oluomo solution on the entire country. Start using the armed forces to act like MC Oluomo. And the minute you do that, the minute you start putting soldiers on the road and get ideas, you are shortening your own lifespan. I know this was going to happen. He has no other way of dealing with problems. It's either he throws money at it or he throws violence at it. Those are his only 2 tools. The man does not have any idea how to lead. I can say this categorically because I know him. So what's going to happen is that some people might get thrown in prison. People will get thrown in prison if he gets into office. Some people might even die. But as I said, that's that Greek story of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, and then the sun melted the wax on his wings and he fell to earth and died. That's what's going to happen to him, because he's going to try and sustain that thing for much longer than it's possible to sustain it. That's not even Buhari, as much of a despot as he was and is. Even Buhari, always easy to forget, Buhari didn't rule with just tyranny alone. Buhari was genuinely loved in some parts of the country. Buhari had an actual support base, a genuine organic support base. He did, and he still does. This guy does not have that. He doesn't have a genuine organic support. What he has is people who have either been incentivized to support him, which is money, or people who have been using, the usual ethnic and religious push
the religious tribal card that they always pay.
have been pushed into indirectly supporting him by attacking his opponents, which is violence. So it's the same thing: money, violence, money, violence. That's all he has. There's nothing organic there. There's nothing genuine there. So when this guy gets in, yes, for a few months it will be pure chaos, but that chaos will not last. It can't. That's the truth. The minute he starts trying to use, and something else I should mention, I can
like
tell
the
you
way
this
they were writing, like the way they are writing to DSS, writing to the NBC, telling them what to do. So if they go on that way, it's just going to get everybody more angrier, I believe.
The minute he does that, especially with the military, because it's always easy to forget that the military still holds a lot of power in Nigeria. Nigeria is not really that. Nigeria is not that.
Are they not
exactly.
those Buhari's government together using the military to protect himself?
And the military the military is still very much a northern institution. It's not a national institution. It's a northern institution. So the minute you piss those guys off too much.
Sorry, did you say northern institution and not?
Yes, it is.
Did I hear you?
Yes, it's not a national institution yet. It's still very much a northern institution. It's a northern institution with some flavoring from other parts of the country, but it's predominantly a northern institution. Statistically, that's the fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. Statistically, that's just a fact. So and that's not just in terms of its total personnel strength, but also in terms of its officer core, right? Even who are the officers in the military?
The idea or their own ideal or something is somehow kind of not national. I will agree with you.
Exactly.
It's not really national.
Who are the officer core? Overwhelmingly, they're from a part of the country. How many Igbo or Delta generals or admirals, or you don't see that many. The majority, and the captains, lieutenants, lieutenant colonels, most of them are from the Middle Belt and the North. That's just the reality of how the Nigerian military is. So the military is like a political institution in itself. Yes. So the minute you now have this, and the military has zero respect for this guy. He has no military pedigree whatsoever, and they know it, right? It's kind of like the same way they didn't really have any respect for Goodluck Jonathan. But in this case, it will be worse. In this case, it will be worse. But in addition to having no respect for him, they also openly despise him because everybody now knows what he is and where he's coming from. So the minute you have someone like that trying to act like GCFR on top of the heads of actual soldiers and actual trained officers, there's going to be a problem. So, which is why I keep on saying it, that if, I don't know what this man was thinking when he ran for president, because I personally think that running for president is one of the worst ideas he has ever had in his life. And whoever it was that told him, yes, that's a good idea when he asked them, that person doesn't like him. Because by running for president, and especially by somehow getting himself declared winner, this man has essentially signed his own death. He has signed his own death warrant. He cannot
on the table for everybody with knife to start cutting. So we see how much of that. Could that also be the reason why somehow, right, David? They were telling everybody then, because I've been covering all of that as usual. Sure, you get everything that happened during the 2020 NSAS. If you go back on this diary, you will see a lot of them. Okay, but however, lately, you are supposed to be talking about the courts and all that. You as a person, right? I don't know if I'm right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? You are one of those who are opportuned to have access to the Peter Obi, the Obidient and Labour Party back room, the situation room during this election. Some of you have access to some numbers that came through, right? Despite all that violence everywhere. And there are a lot of people that confidently believe that the reason why the propaganda to talk about where is Tinubu, interim government, coup, and every other distraction, arrest Obi, they said the reason why all of these are coming up are just pure distraction, a delay, just for a moment for him to get inaugurated. And they will think it's actually exposed. So do you really think they are so scared of the courts or what could happen with what the Obi and his team have, or maybe Atiku too, right? That they have to deploy this latest propaganda that I think is just the beginning. And we're going to see worse, including violence. I mean, could there be something we don't know? David?
So I think what it is that they obviously they know better than anyone else what the actual election figures were, and they know just how badly they lost. They know it's better than you and I. They know in Lagos, for example. Do you know what it means for them to officially admit that they lost Lagos?
I did believe it.
So officially, they admitted that they lost Lagos. So do you know what the actual margin was? The stated margin they gave, they say it was 500 and something thousand to 400 and something thousand. They made it once more. The actual margin, which I'm informed on very good authority, it was closer to 900 and something thousand to 100 and something thousand. They lost woefully, scandalous. It was a shellacking. It was a landslide. And such patterns were repeated across the country. Maybe not to the extent of Lagos, but something
even Abuja. Even Abuja.
So they know how badly they lost the election. So as far as they're concerned, you know how when you have a guilty conscience, anything that looks like an accusation, it will look as if it's coming after your life. So that's what it is. So whether it's courts, whether it's people who they accuse of coup baiting, whether it's the so-called interim government, like even some of these things might not even exist. It might just be figment of their imagination. But to somebody who knows what he has done, every shadow looks like it's chasing him. So, I mean, somebody who has spent weeks running away from people trying to serve him papers, that should give you an idea of how they see this whole thing. Because if you are genuinely not afraid of anything, then they should serve you the papers now.
What's the big winner?
Yeah, if you or even if you know that you didn't win, but the way you rigged it is still it's still within an arguable limit. You understand?
Of time.
Exactly. You take I go to court now, but you will notice immediately after the election, the first thing they started shouting was this: go to court, go to court, go to court. Which was what that actually meant was acknowledge that we've won. Because by going to court, you've acknowledged that the election has a result that was stated, and now you're going to challenge that result. And then as soon as the people actually went to court, then immediately it switched to, you're trying to stop our inauguration from happening. Yeah, and then they now started trying to draw this completely farcical parallel with MK Abiola, that they're trying to do what IBB did to MK Abiola. I'm thinking to myself, so I don't understand. Peter Obi is now Ibrahim Babangida, or how does that work? Exactly.
You have been in that terrain for a while. Can opposition actually plan interim government or a coup? From your own experience, historically and all that, can opposition?
In Africa, it's categorically not possible.
It's impossible.
It's not possible. How do you want to do it?
From within, from inside.
Exactly. So if there's anybody who is plotting interim government or coup, they should go to Aso Rock and ask the people there. They are the ones who have the answers. It's not by coming to Twitter or coming to the media to release statements like the way the TSS did. That the plot to establish interim government is real, and then you're coming to post a statement about it on Twitter. So it's like, okay, so what do you want us to do about that? The ones who are plotting interim governments, assuming such a thing exists, go and meet the people who have the power to plot interim government. Stop coming to tell us.
Capacity and resources. But there is another one. I really don't want you to make a comment on that too detailed, okay? Because they will say it's what's it called again? Prejudicial. What is it called? Something that they will say, is anti the court, like you're abusing the court process if you talk about that, right? I know something that all institutions in Nigeria that we have seen so far, especially for those who didn't really believe, okay? Before now, we know police is corrupt, the military is corrupt, this one is corrupt, that one is corrupt, right? Then the Obidient came, right, to expose that the police and the military are not just corrupt, they are deadly. They are, in fact, licensed terrorists. Obidient made the whole world to see that. We saw that happen on record. So, INEC came, like you said, they sold this cold zobo of something that's going to be different. There may be rigging, but it will be technologically almost impossible to retain any result from rigging with all the promises and the rest of that. But in a space of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, the Obidient also exposed Mahmoud is one of the talked about anti-democratic elements in the world today. Thanks for that experience, as we can see. Well, I think this is now sending a kind of a shiver, right? A shiver down the spine of the judiciary. Now, it was APC who raised the alarm that the judiciary is about to be put on trial by the Obidient. Why is that? Why are they worried that because they said that you are planning, the Obidient are planning not to accept any court judgment other than the one that declare will be winner. Is that true? Like when you go to court, right? You expect to prove your case, right? And then it goes either way. So why do you think they are worried that Obidient want to put the judiciary on trial? Is judiciary on? I mean, please.
First of all, they need to explain why they are talking about a potential outcome as though it's a fact. They need to explain why they are talking about an outcome that declares Tinubu winner when the hearing has not even started. Do they know something that the rest of us don't know? Because the way I understand the court process is that it's either A or B. It's 50-50. So if it's not 50-50, then they need to come out and explain, where they got their own information from. Do they know something that the rest of us don't know? Possibly. Are they in contact with the judges? Have the judges told them something? That's the question that they need to answer. Because if not, then I don't see why. If the judiciary is on trial, then I don't think it hasn't been earned. The Nigerian judiciary, especially over the past 6 to 8 years, has done enough things to put itself on trial, has done enough things to show that people have a right to be concerned about its potential to pervert the course of this. So, but this wasn't up to a year ago when the former Chief Justice of Nigeria was basically bundled out of office. Again, I feel like amnesia is a very, very bad cultural trait we have in Nigeria. So people forget things very easily. The immediate past Chief Justice of Nigeria, Chief Justice Tanko Mohammed, his tenure was so disastrous that the Supreme Court, for lack of a better term, basically went on strike until he was bundled out of office. I've never seen that kind of scenario before, where the judiciary, the Supreme judges of the Supreme Court actually signed something like an open letter denouncing the Chief Justice. I've never seen such a thing like that before in any country. Nigeria is the first place I've seen it. So when you have a judiciary where that has happened within the past 18 months, we have a judiciary which has a history of, for example, declaring somebody that came fourth in an election to be the winner, Hope Uzodinma in Imo State. And the verdict was so unconscionable that even the justices who took part in that judgment were given visa bans by the US government. And this is on record. When you have that kind of judiciary there, I think people have a right to be concerned that this guy is actually going to
live up to expectation.
Are they going to actually deliver justice, or is there a preconceived act that they have in store? Are they going to play out some kind of drama that has already been conceived behind closed doors somewhere? I mean, this is a judiciary where you can go there and complain. You've taken somebody to court. This person stole my goat. You provide your evidence that this is your goat and this person stole it. You have picture and video evidence. This open and short case. And then the judge will start saying, okay, but according to the statement you wrote here, you claim that when he came into your farm to steal the goat, he did not specify whether it was his right leg or his left leg that was the first leg he used to enter the farm. So based on that, I'm going to strike out the case. All that stupid technicality justice that Nigerian judges are famous for. People have experienced these things, so people have a right to be bothered. Have you forgotten 2019? What the result of that supposed election tribunal was in 2019? Where, in the face of all the evidence that was produced, it was one of those sort of silly technicalities that they used to dismiss Atiku's petition and maintain Buhari as president. So yes, people have a right to be worried. I am worried.
David, it's been such a great pleasure. And then it seems that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. I have been the one asking all these questions. They are just germane ones to me personally. And just also to kind of have a little entrance into your world, because this is your world. You know this just like at the back of your hand. And again, my own concern, which is the title of this conversation tonight, is the consequences of all of this for us, economically, even security-wise, unity, and the rest of that. And seeing the fact that the Obidient managed to be calm against all expectations, right? That if they were rigged so amateurishly, like you said, and openly like this, it will trigger a bit of a problem. Something they themselves actually envisaged before the elections, that people should come and sign peace accord, even with all they did after that. But 2 days after that, when the tension was rising and rising, I was monitoring, people were so angry for being disenfranchised by these rogues that are unable to even celebrate the fraud, right? Then Obi came out and he said, we should calm down. And just like that, everybody just calmed down and they are focusing on the court. Then APC brought this interim and the rest of that. Do you think, with the level at which these guys are going, provocation, gaslighting, all these lies, including incitement, for example, right? We have seen them chase Igbos out of Lagos and they brag about it openly. That has never been seen before. Not like this. Sure, you get. We have seen people living abroad sending cryptic messages on different platforms, inciting people why they must do everything to protect the interest of APC. Now, my question is actually like, how long do you think, right, the Obidient will hold back before they begin to fight back? For now, APC is attacking people. They are attacking people. People are losing their arms. They are amputating people's legs. People have lost their lives. People lost their sights simply because they are identified with Obidient and all that. Now, Obi said, calm down. The court will decide. Okay? But it seems that they are escalating it somehow. Let me play you one clip, right? Hang on.
Own influencers. May they bring, let us, this time is no more time of being same. If they say Asawaju is a drug dealer, P2B is a drug dealer, P2B is whatever. Me myself, Douglas, they're not going to bring and come near me. They won't. They're not bond them well. They know bond them well. It goes for gas. If you tell me Shetima is Boko Haram, P2B is IPOP. Bond. If you want cry. If you want break your head. The time for being civil is gone. We have won the election. So when they bring that their nonsense, give it to them back. I was expecting the time of that election when they were pushing all sort of nonsense junks and this is what the one that they do with that what is his name? This Olumide Owori or something. That was the one I was like, oh, what's APC doing? I said it in our group. What is APC doing? Do you push your propaganda? Get 3 people, beat one person, video it, or LP is beating APC guy. Stage all these things and push it on the land.
Did you hear that, David?
Yeah.
I have another one.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, this is another one.
So long that we are not even challenging. To say that I'm not hungry is I'm just kidding myself. I've not been able to sleep. I've not been able to do anything. I've been awake all morning and I'm still going to work today. This is totally uncalled for. And we really need to check this. If APC wants to still remain in power in Lagos State, they need to check and clip the wings of these Igbos, the Easterners coming into our land and taking everything.
So, David, we are dealing with some dangerous people. And the end result of all of this is that we are all going to be consumed by it. People they are outside the country, right? inciting people back there on this APC must do this to Igbos and all of that. How long do you think people can hold back before they will no longer have to just be responding and fighting online? I mean, defending themselves, that they will no longer listen to Obi's calm down, calm down. I mean, I'm seeing something like that, but I actually want to hear from you. How long do you think they can
So
hold back?
I think there'll be two scenarios when all bets will be off. The first scenario is if the election tribunal or whatever um, delivers a ruling before May 29, and that ruling is a ridiculous decision. I think that's one of the scenarios in which you see chaos. And I think the second scenario is um, if for whatever reason the security forces um, something enters their head and then they decide that they want to arrest Peter Obi.
Hmm.
Because I think that particular kite has been flown already. If they do that and then there's no Peter Obi tell everybody to calm down, then I think there'll be a real problem. A real problem. It's always important to remember that these recordings you just played, the people in those recordings, all those people who attend those spaces, that entire political movement is not made up of cerebral people. For lack of a better expression, these are some of the dumbest people out there. It's just a fact, unfortunately. So, and the reason I'm mentioning this is to make the point that these people do not understand the concept of elastic limits and knowing when to stop. These people will just keep on going because that's how dumb people are. They hear go, they don't hear come. So when they've been unleashed, or they feel like they've been unleashed by their supposed electoral victory and their party to go out and act crazy or do all those things they said they were going to do in those recordings, they are not capable of self-regulation. Right? These are the people who have been going around inflicting physical violence on other people. I think if you were to ask the very top echelon of the APC, even though those ones they clearly condone it, but if you had to ask them one-on-one that do they necessarily want people to go around chopping off the arms and eyes of Igbo people in Lagos, is that really what they want? It's for some it might be yes, for some it might be no. But it doesn't matter as the people at the bottom, because those ones, all they just hear is, okay, they've had an opportunity, they've been given the green light, so just do what you like. So the real danger actually that I'm seeing here, and it's actually very unfortunate that because of the atmosphere we're in now, these are conversations that we cannot have now. Because as you said, even my indigency is being questioned. My Yorubaness is in question now because that's the world we live in now, apparently. If not, it's a real conversation that needs to be had, that for putting aside the Igbo people or the other people that you categorize as Igbo, putting aside all those people for a change, what is actually going on now? Eventually, inevitably, if it's not checked, is going to develop into full-blown intra-Yoruba class warfare.
Like a proper xenophobia, like xenophobic, sort of campaign. It's so similar.
So I'm even saying putting aside the Igbos and the supposed outsiders. Even if you're able to, even if theoretically, I don't know how you want to do it, but even theoretically, you were able to send all the Igbos or whoever away from Lagos, and Lagos becomes Yoruba enclave, the problem will not end there. In fact, it will just be starting. Because what's really going on, what I can see, and which it's not politically correct to say it now, but what I can see is that there's a particular class within the Yoruba population that believes that its time is now, and it's a very, very specific type of it's a very conservative type of people, overwhelmingly Muslim, by the way, even though that's not politically correct to say, but it just happens to be true as well. So inevitably, you are going to start having both class and religious conflicts within the Yoruba, which is an ethnic group that historically has never had intra-ethnic class and religious conflicts. Historically, the Yoruba has been probably the only ethnic group in Nigeria to have been able to maintain Christian and Muslim in pretty much equal proportion without rubbing up against each other. Historically, that is starting to change. You know, and for now, the Igbos are sort of they're the buffer that
Like
allows
the intermediary of what is
exactly.
harm.
They
Once
are the buffer.
picture, they will actually approach the real terror.
And then it becomes a problem.
You get what I mean? I've told people here, we are among the most traveled ethnic nationalities from Nigeria, Yorubas. A lot of us have intermarried. We have children who are grown-up adults now.
Yeah.
This election puts their indigenship into question.
I mean, they said that Badebo wrote Vival. They say he's not Yoruba. I'm like, what? They say he's half blood. What does that mean? Exactly, that he's half blood. I don't understand what that means, because the Vival family has been recognized as an indigenous family of Lagos for the best part of 1.5 centuries. So these people whose ancestors, many of them moved to Lagos in the 80s or the 90s, are now pulling ethnic rank on Badebo Vival, are saying it's not Yoruba. So that means somebody like me, one day I'll go back to Nigeria, I'll go back to Lagos, and somebody will tell me that well, my mom comes from Akwa Ibom. That's what's going to happen.
So all your children, they will not be seen as a proper Yoruba. That's the concept that I said. See, I was raising the alarm. I said Nigeria is so messed up right now. But with APC and Tinubu and what we know they are capable of, we can, as well as probably kiss Nigeria goodbye.
Yeah.
However,
and these people are dull enough to push things to that extent, because the Buhari people, you have to give them some credit. The Buhari people are also very ethnocentric. They're also very clannish and tribalistic, but they at least understand that on some level, there are some lines that you can't cross. Behind closed doors, obviously, we know the things they say. They call Igbo people, all this. We know they do those things, right? We know. But you will never see them come out in public with their chest, come out and make certain comments. You had Bayo Ononuga, who is an official spokesperson of the supposed president-elect, coming out to say that I am Yoruba first before I'm Nigerian. Now, if you are speaking in the capacity of a member of Afenifere, that's an understandable comment to make. If you are speaking as a member of OPC, that's an understandable comment to make. But you say you are speaking as an official representative of a national presidential candidate who supposedly has won a national election to become the national president. And you are saying I am Yoruba first before I'm Nigerian. And then on top, you're now saying that let this election be basically you're singling out a specific ethnic group. Buhari's people never did that. They never did that. It's not because they didn't want to, but they were smart enough to understand that this doesn't end well.
Lines you don't cross.
It doesn't end well.
You don't go back.
Exactly. It doesn't
but
end
well. But they're down, David. Like you said, they don't know how to stop. Fani Kayode, Festus Keyamo, Bayo Ononuga, Dele Alake, as well as their foot soldiers. They don't know how to stop, right? So, David, I mean, it's been a pleasure, I have to admit, okay? Indeed, it's also been an eye-opener for a lot of us here tonight. I am going to have us take a break, if that's okay, yeah? So that you can actually get up from there for the past 2 hours, right? Get some refreshment and all that for another 2-3 minutes, right? Then we can just round it up before we go. You know, one of the purpose of this conversation tonight is to, as who you are, right, is to further help a lot of people who are confused now, and rightly so. There's so much going on, so much lie being fed out there, and deliberately so, to distract people. Now, we just want people to have something that they should remember, that whether you think you are fighting now and you have lost, or there's nothing you can do anymore, when you remember what Nigeria will become, a narco state, as well as profiling of Nigerians abroad like you've never seen before, well, that may be a charging port for you never to stop. David, let's go get some refreshment, okay? I so appreciate this, right? So we'll come back in a minute. Let's take 5, okay? I'll be back before then. So David, thank you so much, yeah? So everyone, if you are still here watching us, brilliant. Please take a moment and then like this broadcast. One moment. Somebody said that this talk is foolish. Do you know something? I don't know if you probably just dropped that unintentionally, but when we see guys like yourself, we call them stray dogs. Where is Princess? Where is she? It seems there are some stray dogs on that YouTube. Usually you would have probably cleaned them up, okay? I'll try some. Now, talking about criminals who have who sort of inherited the fraud that happened in 2023, the one that is an ex-convict, the one that is also wishing to become your Senate president. If Kolu is drug baron, Shitty Man is Boko Haram, then you are welcome to the world of another thief who stole election because he wants to go and be the Senate president of Nigeria. Oji Uzokalu, the owners of the election, they don't chase them all. Listen to this. They say, bring back our certificate of return. Return the certificate of return. Voila, everywhere. Since morning. Ataro. This one is from Abia. They are looking for Oji Uzokalu.
The streets. This is a call for inclusion of Abia North Senatorial District in the April 15, 2023 scheduled supplementary elections and withdrawal of certificate of return from Senator Oji Uzokalu. Gentlemen of the press, following the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, press statement on Monday, March 27, 2023, which stated that April 15, 2023 has been fixed for the conduct of all outstanding governorship, national, and state assembly supplementary elections. We, the coalition of civil society organizations and stakeholders in Abia North Senatorial District, wish to appeal to the chairman of the electoral body, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and the commission to include Abia North Senatorial District in this supplementary polls, and also withdraw the certificate of return from Senator Oji Uzokalu. This appeal becomes very necessary following 1. The post-election outcry and protest by indigents of the senatorial districts on account of disenfranchisement and perceived deception and compromise by the officials of the Electoral Commission. 2. The report by the accredited INEC election observers, which affirmed that the senatorial election that took place in Abia North on 25th February 2023 was below the standard and acceptable electoral practice, contrary to the INEC Electoral Act and guidelines, and against the wishes and expectations of the electorate and the constituents. 3. That the INEC returning officer, after noticing some irregularities and logistic challenges on the election day being 25th February 2023, announced to the observers, party agents, and others in Ohafia, after consultation with the resident electoral officer in Umuahia, that there would be a rerun election on Sunday, 26th February 2023, in some places in Abia North where elections didn't hold. But the elections never held till date. 4th, that from the report from INEC accredited observers, election didn't hold in over 100 polling units across the underlisted LGS in Abia North Senatorial District, with over 80,000 registered voters. Some of these LGS are Ohafia local government area. In Ohafia local government area, we have about 4 wards where election did not hold. Isiama had 47 units. Aboji has 10 units. Okamo has 27 units. Ndielu, 4 units. When you come to Arochukwu local government area, Amufi has 4 units. Eloha has 1 unit. Amango, 3 units. Oheke, 3 units. Coming to Isukwato local government area, the 2 units in ABSU, that is Abia State University, the election did not hold in these places. Fifth, there was total violation of electoral guidelines in the conduct of the election in Abia North Senatorial District, such as not counting and announcement of results opened by the presiding officer at the polling units, not posting of results in the polling units, not transmitting the results at the conclusion of voting to the INEC result viewing, that is the IREF portal. As coalitions and stakeholders, we want to call on the chairman and the Electoral Commission to withdraw the certificate of return given to Senator Ojus Okalo, as the election which announced his victory is inconclusive. And for the same senator to now clamor for the seat of the Senate President of Nigeria, as he called his turn, is a joke of the highest level and a slap to our democracy. That someone...
What shall I say unto the Lord?
Yes, Lord.
All I have to say,
Thank you, Lord.
what
shall I say? Thank you,
Nigeria is so corrupt, which I regret the day I was born in this country. It's unfair. This is unfair now. This is unfair. Nigeria is so...
Thank you so much. And you are welcome back. So I was going to take, well, I'm glad that David is also back. So let's bring David back off. So David, there is this video, or should I say, phone conversation purportedly from Obi to Bishop Oyedepo 2 days ago. I sort of projected that somehow, this interim, that, and more propaganda are going to pop up. In a way, right? It came on today, and it's going to be talk of everywhere too. So, also, let's also acknowledge that as they were bringing all this propaganda out today, I don't know, you said you've been like almost in all day and not doing much, right? However, I don't know if you have spent any much time today on either Facebook or Twitter. In a way, the Obidient have turned to FBI. Early this morning, a man started screaming on an aircraft, right? A drama that became so kind of hilarious as Obidient came out to deny him. Obidient don't deny their own. So are they being caught in this whole bubble of propaganda enough that they are about to be overwhelmed? Because these are no longer what people say or say. Somebody said, beat somebody up, record the video, and post it online and say, Labour Party are beating APC. And this old man or this middle-aged man appeared on the plane today and started shouting, Tinubu must not be sworn in. Then Obidient outrightly denied him, and they are now calling for his prosecution. That's not the same when Chude was also kind of kidnapped. Now, my question is this. Do you think the Obidient that turned to this, to this FBI to rebuff all propaganda, right? Do you really think they are still up to, they will be up to the task for long? It's not really a good question to say, but I just feel like asking. Because to me, I have seen the tremendous response of theirs, sincerely. Right.
So
David.
So coming from someone who comes from a marketing background, bear in mind that a lot of the people who are in charge of the APC's propaganda efforts are people who were my contemporaries as at 2015. or my immediate seniors in the marketing communications industry. So these are people that I know fairly well. We're in the same industry, we use the same tactics, we all worked in PR or advertising or marketing. So from that vantage point, what I can say is a lot of the obedience need to learn how to conserve their energy. Sometimes the best way to counteract something is to take away its power. And the way to take away its power is to completely blank it, completely ignore it. Don't give it oxygen. How these APC people work is by seizing a situation and then turning it into something much bigger than what it actually is. So that aircraft incident, for example, so some guy starts shouting Tinubu shouldn't be sworn in, and so what? What does that have to do with obedience? What does that have to do with the Peter Obi petition? What does that have to do with anything? It's just one guy freaking out on the plane. That's not a story. That's not an issue. Right. So I feel as if going to expend so much energy on it that no, this guy is not actually one of us. So what? It's not important. You are helping them push their own propaganda by helping that issue to trend on Twitter and by making a meal of it. How many things have been exposed about them that they just completely locked up and went silent? How many times
and they have that way, David. You are so observant, right? Whenever something, I'm talking about the real issue, things done by their criminal leaders and all of that, right? Whenever they pop up as headline, these guys just disappear like that. You don't see them say anything. They just disappear because they'll
start tweeting about football. They completely ignore it, right? So I feel as if obedience needs to learn how to deploy strategic silence. Strategic silence. The same thing with this purported phone call, where if you listen to the full phone call, because I listened to it before it was released publicly. I had it since yesterday.
Right.
If you listen to it, clearly the man was stating that in context, this has now been turned into a religious war. So please help me talk to your people, the Christians, that they should come out. That's what he was saying. He was not saying that I am prosecuting a religious war campaign. So that's not like, and if you listen to the full phone call, it's very obvious in what context this thing was said. You were hearing what's his name, David Oyedepo making statements like every Nigerian has an equal stake in this election. Is there no one man has the right to, you understand? These are not the statements somebody makes if they are actively trying to
there's nothing really implicating there. It could have been a conversation between do you mind if we actually listen to it for the sake of our listeners?
And then hang on. The other thing I was going to point out, which I'm surprised that nobody else has pointed out, is that clearly it wasn't Peter Obi that released this conversation, and it wasn't David Oyedepo either. So and because I spoke to the person who, because before this thing was published yesterday, as I said, I had it, and I spoke to the person who sent it to me, who is a colleague in the industry, and I said, wait, but WhatsApp calls and Signal calls are encrypted. So how did this recording come out? And the person said no. So it's not a WhatsApp call or a Signal call. It was a direct call, a phone call. So what that means, somebody accepted.
Sorry, I lost you there. I lost you there. What that means? Yeah, I lost you there. Please.
Okay, so
when you
what that means that somebody in the Nigerian, someone in the Nigerian security institution, whether it's the police or the DSS or the NIA, whatever, intercepted a direct call that Peter Obi and recorded it, and then has now leaked it and put it out there. So basically, what we are witnessing, in addition to the fact that it's being mischaracterized as something that it's not, that very recording itself is something illegal, right? Peter Obi's phone calls clearly have been monitored. Yeah, he has been wiretapped without any kind of court warrant to do so.
Go on, sorry.
Exactly, which is illegal, which is very illegal, but no one has mentioned that at all. So if I were Peter Obi, actually, that would be the number one thing I'll be saying. How did this recording come into the public domain? Who even recorded it? What the person who originated the call didn't record it. The person who received the call didn't record it. So which means the call was intercepted. So who intercepted it and why? These are the questions that need to be asked.
Somebody came to my mind. Yeah, something came to someone came to my mind. Sorry, David. I know you are a journalist, and you know that everything you say you could be quoted, and you are being very careful. For me, I am not a journalist. I'm you know, I'm a concerned citizen. Sure, you get. So anybody, I can be sued too, but you are a professional, so you know more than me. Do you know what came to my mind? Issa Pandemic. That is the communication minister. So are you? I don't know if I should take you for that. You know, like word for word to say. Would you say the phone call is real? Then is that something you can say?
It definitely is, because the person the person who sent it to me isn't is a senior colleague in the industry. It's not someone who
Do you mind if we listen to the content again? There is a reason why I want to share it, right? So that you are a journalist. You know how propaganda works. You know how marketing works, like you said, or any other fancy name you might want to give. You know what I mean? But this is it. We know the target and we know their intention. And like you said, that they can make small thing look bigger. Maybe we should actually dissect what they said in there by neutralizing the intention for the propaganda or what have you, by explaining what is in it. So, David, let's take 4 here, and I'm going to listen to.
Good morning, Daddy.
Praise the Lord. How are you, sir?
Fine, Daddy. Good morning, Daddy.
Amen. In Jesus' name, we are going to get a bright result.
Thank you, Daddy. When I hear this your call and prayers, Daddy is very dear to me. And like I keep saying, if this works, you people will never regret this support.
Amen. Amen.
You know.
We look forward to God's intervention.
Thank you, Daddy.
We look forward to God's intervention.
Thank you, Daddy.
We look forward to God's intervention.
Amen, Daddy. Daddy, I need you to speak to the people in the Southwest. Your people in the Southwest and Kwara.
Okay. I've been in touch with Kwara people.
The Christians in the Southwest and Kwara. This is a religious war.
I believe that. You know, I did the release, Nigeria Going Forward.
Yes.
And I'm coming out with the second one today.
Thank you, Daddy.
I wanted it out before when they won't have any time to do damage control.
Thank you, Daddy.
So, but in the name of Jesus, this project shall succeed.
Amen.
You know what I said in today's one? A sickly nation like Nigeria will require a strong and healthy personality.
Thank you, sir.
And I said anyone whose source of words cannot be verified should not have access to governance, particularly in a dry economy like Nigeria. So all we are doing is appealing to the wisdom and conscience of people.
Thank you, Daddy.
To know where to go.
Thank you, Daddy.
But I want to assure you in the name of Jesus that the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Daddy.
That the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Daddy.
That the result shall be favorable.
Thank you, Jesus.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
So relax yourself, don't be apprehensive. Are you in Lagos or Abuja?
I'm in Onitsha now.
Good. So you'll be there for the election?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, Daddy.
That's where to be.
Thank you, Daddy.
That's where to be.
Thank you, Daddy.
I said all Nigerians have equal stake in this nation. Nobody has a right to claim that he's dashing something to someone.
Thank you, Daddy.
We are coming out of it.
Thank you, Daddy.
So are young family in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So how is the East generally?
East is okay. East is quiet.
Okay.
Thank
and
you,
the middle belt, how are we doing?
Middle belt, we're okay. But in places like Kogi, Kwara, and Niger, is a worrisome place.
Well, we'll get through to Kwara.
Oh, fantastic. I went to Kwara and visited Olofa Ofofa, who told me that nobody has ever come here. With you, no problem. But the Christian community in Kwara and Niger, and listen, I'm also working in in Kogi, same way.
Okay. Then I will target these clips to them.
Thank you.
I will make sure they get it today.
Thank you.
In Jesus' name.
I'll be looking out for the release as well.
Okay.
Ask your pastor to send it to me.
Okay. I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'll do that. God bless you.
Thank you.
Peace. So I'll still talk to you later today.
Yeah, thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
So that was the phone call. So the Obidient FBI, they strongly believe that it is deep voice and fake news. So they even said, some said that that voice, for those who actually listen to Obi's broadcast or interview or something before the election, he sounded like this.
3 days to the general election. So I don't know if you have any reason in particular for making another visit here. What's the connection with?
Actually, this is supposed to be my fifth visit to the States. I was working and last. I was supposed to.
So he lost his voice. But people still don't believe that. They're like, no, it's a deep voice. They had to go and bring somebody that even sounded better in that phone conversation. It sounded better, like it sounded more real like Oyedepo than that phone call. FBI, Obidient. I'm bringing David back in a minute anyway. Yeah. So take a look.
Yes, leave them. Stop going up and down. It's very, very funny. Seeing all my lovely son in faith checking time, telling me that it's already time for us to pray. Don't tell me when it's time to pray. The Holy Spirit will tell me it's already time for us to read the scripture. Hey man, it's food. FFO. I think you should always be eating something. You want to be like Jesus' disciple. Eating something until where you cannot get impacted. My friend, I pray for you today that the grace for you to wait on Him, and days 21 days prayer and fasting, may God give unto you. For those doing 40 days, may God give unto you. For those doing 50 days, for those doing 100 days, may God give you the impact. And I pray for you the patience. Receive it now. Receive it now. In the mighty name of Jesus. Stay blessed and God bless you.
Anyway, David, but you have said that it wouldn't have been a thing if the Obidient just kind of ignore most of the things that are thrown at them, right? But that's the phone call. Did you listen to that again? I mean, you have a copy. You almost said it word for word.
Yeah.
Go
And again, it goes back to my previous points that people make these things much more of a thing than they are. So the entire conversation, which lasted for about 4 minutes, what is being extracted from there and turned into some sort of non-existent scandal is a throwaway line that was less than 3 seconds long. Right? Nothing else in the rest of the conversation is anything out of what you would expect. So in the first place, so the idea that it's deep fake, if APC wanted to do a deep fake, they would have done a deep fake with Peter Obi saying really genuinely terrible things. Not all the innocuous things that he was saying. First of all, it wasn't a deep fake. It was an actual conversation, and it was a perfectly legitimate conversation. It was a perfectly normal conversation. There's nothing wrong with what he said.
You were pointing out the source of it, and a lot of people believe that even Peter Obi is under serious pressure, right, to kind of embrace government of national unity. Obi has denied it. Tinubu self have denied that he's denying the fact that he's forming a government of national unity, right? But we kind of get to know, right, that behind the scene as well, they will wish there is no court case.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I can tell you something. So I guess, well, I heard this from the man himself. So, and I haven't mentioned it anywhere, but I'm going to mention it first on your channel. So I'm going to say this here. So, he told me this like with his own. So this isn't something I heard from a third party or something. That during the campaign, the person who now wants to be recognized as president-elect was under the impression that Peter Obi was running or was accepting the nomination of the Labour Party for the purpose of spoiling Atiku's chances, and that maybe there was some sort of implied cooperation between Peter Obi and the supposed eventual winner for the purpose of splitting Atiku's vote. But as soon as that person realized that Peter Obi was actually serious about running for president, and the movement around him was actually becoming like an NSAS kind of movement that was building up critical mass and taking up all the young people, and then they started getting frightened. That's when they started attacking Peter Obi, that they never took him serious at first. So when they realized that he was hovering up youth support, they started taking him serious. In the initial stages, that they apparently had actually started like trying to make offers, like funding offers for the campaign that basically take this money. But obviously, once you take their money, you become beholden to them. So if you take their money and then later on they tell you to step down, you have to step down.
So no wonder Soludo said if he was Tinubu, he will give Peter Obi money to keep campaigning. So it was like in their circle, they never took him serious until
And apparently Tinubu actually tried to give him money to campaign, but he never touched it. And that's where the problem came from, because the idea that Tinubu's people had was, oh, okay, this guy he's taking, the youth, the Twitter people seem to be entertained by him. So we can use him to take 2 or 3 million votes away from Atiku. If 2 or 3 million is too much, you can use to take 1 or 2 million votes away from Atiku. And then that, and then he refused to take their money. So which means they couldn't control him. And then they started to understand that this man actually wants to become president. And he actually believes he can win.
Tinubu was like Obi, the other one.
Exactly.
Importer, exporter. So they were caught unaware. Tell us more, David.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. They did not take him serious at first. And then later on, started getting some traction. They said, okay, let's put some few tens of millions behind him to just encourage him and to help him cut Atiku's vote. And then he became everybody's biggest nightmare because, and then all those polls started coming out, and it became clear that this man is actually going to win this election ahead of the entire established system. And then he became their number one enemy. They couldn't tell him to step down because he didn't take their money. So they couldn't control him. And in fact, so you may or may not be aware of this. All the traveling he did during his campaign period, where he was always in one jet up and down, he was paying for it out of his own pocket.
Wow.
He intentionally refused to touch a lot of the money that was available for him to touch because the source of that money was dodgy. So he didn't want anything that could be used against him in future, that somebody who used to blackmail him later. So he, by necessity, he ran possibly one of the cleanest and one of the least expensive political campaigns that Nigeria has ever witnessed. I always like to say that pound for pound, that was the most successful political campaign I've ever seen in Nigeria, pound for pound, in terms of what was spent and what was achieved. That was one of, if not the most successful political campaign I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And from Tinubu's point of view, it was like, where did this one come from? He will not for the president. That's how we saw it. Exactly. That's exactly how we saw it.
I mean, we have witnessed a lot, as we can see, right? And the days ahead, it seems to be a little bit cloudy, if not dark. Okay? So somebody like yourself, from experience, David, you have kind of felt the bite, or let me say the venom of the establishment when they came for you. There are general impression now that they will do the same thing to so many of these young people who are participating in this whole experience. A lot of them are going to end up in exile. Some are going to end up in jail. It seems that the Obidient don't give a damn about what will happen to them. But you are now a veteran. You've got experience on what it is or how to handle these people. You just gave one just a moment ago. They don't have to react to or give oxygen to every of their propaganda. But when shoves come to push, push come to shove, David, what are the likely things you will say to people to expect in these dark days ahead, and possibly how to handle them?
So in fact, possibly the favorite tactic that they use is going up. They won't go after everybody at the same time. They will identify people who they think are the ringleaders or the most respected or the most influential people within the movement. And then they'll start looking for dirt on every single one of them and start trying to discredit each person one by one. So, and I know this because I saw it happen during NSAS. I saw it happen to me as well. So the whole recent, how they engineered and contrived a scandal out of absolutely nothing recently at Oxford University, and then they started sponsoring, like, when you, like, a Twitter handle tweets something and then pays for it to be sponsored, and then on Facebook I started sponsoring posts so that
everybody sees this message.
Yeah, exactly. Started sponsoring posts saying David Hundeyin is a scammer, is a fraudster, like, out of absolutely nothing. What was the scam? What was the fraud? They said I put copies of my book on sale during my book launch. What exactly is it that happens at a book launch if you don't put copies of your book on sale? I don't understand. But again, this is when they've checked high, they checked low, they've combed through your entire life, they can't really find anything significant to use. Then they'll start making stuff up, and then they'll start loading it with buzzwords just so that something can stick. So no matter how clean you think you are, they will find a way to rub shit on your name. It doesn't have to be based on anything. It doesn't have to be true.
Anything substantial or evidential. Just
using agidi, using just aggression, they will find a way to smear as much stuff as is possible over your name. So
I think people can handle that. We have seen how they are handling them now, to the point that they are calling bullies.
Yeah, I mean, you can
in that regard.
You might be able to handle it when it comes to those general accusations that are. But when they start going, I mean, these guys, trust me, these guys have no limits. So one thing I want to tell anyone who is watching, who is trying to prepare themselves for what is coming, is that you need to develop thick skin. You need to start finding a way to not react emotionally to everything, because these people, they have no limits. These people will go and look for, in my case, one of the lines that they started running with was that I killed my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Knowing fully well that my dad is somebody that meant so much to me. In fact, part of the reason why I'm being a journalist today is because he died. Right? My dad was possibly the most important person in my life. Like, I love the man to death. So, and they know that. So they know that that's the thing that needles me. That's the one that pains
you. Mess with your head, and then people are asking, David, is it true? David,
is it true that you killed your father?
Tell me what happened. I get that.
Yeah. So people need to be prepared to develop thick skin, because no matter how talentless these people are, when it comes to evil, they have talent for it. They understand how to create narratives that will get to you. They have a gift for it, a negative gift. So that's the first thing they will do. They'll start coming after the individual reputations of the people who they think are influential. The second thing that they will do, which I believe is one of the most dangerous things that this supposedly incoming APC government led by Tinubu will do, is that the way they do in Lagos, they will start trying to control everybody's ability to earn a living. So, however independent your hustle you think you have, they will start finding ways to try and gain control over it. So, let's say you're a freelance computer programmer, you work online for foreign clients,
organizations and clients.
So you feel as if whatever is happening in Nigeria, they will find a way. They will go and introduce a new law stating that freelancers living in Nigeria must pay one ridiculous tax amount or something. They will find ways to start sucking your blood out of you. That is what, like the way they did in Lagos, where they're always boasting that they raised IGR from 600 million to Kiniko billion. What they don't tell you is that how they raised that IGR wasn't by raising the productivity of Lagos or by growing the economy of Lagos. It was just by levying more taxes on everybody, which is why Lagos has the most expensive transportation in the whole country. even though Lagos has one of the least efficient transportation systems in the country. That's the part they don't tell you. So a bus driver in Lagos, how much does a bus driver make? But they'll tell the bus driver he has to pay 13,000 naira daily so that they can cut tickets for him. That's tax. That's how they raise their IGR. That's how they do it. It's not by creating any productive value for anybody. It's not by increasing any
no
value
wonder,
created.
No wonder the city, the economy that is churning out that huge amount of tax return, have any tax plan for the taxpayers in Lagos, like a tax return or something that actually go back into the business. They just take.
You are going very far. You are going very far by talking about tax return. Lagos does not have basic drainage systems. Whenever it rains, the city floods. Basic drainage. I'm not talking about sewage, central sewage systems. I'm not talking about 24/7 electricity. Those things are like rocket science. I mean, gutters, basic drainage, surface drainage that keeps the streets dry when it rains. Lagos doesn't really have that yet.
24 years democracy.
Exactly. But they can boast that they have 24 billion IGR or however much it is that they say they have. So that's the second thing they will do. They will go after your livelihood. After going after your reputation, they go after your livelihood. If that doesn't work, the next thing they will do is the only other option they have, which is violence. So if you are physically exposed, like if you are physically vulnerable to being attacked, maybe you live in a neighborhood that isn't that well secured, or people know how to get to you or something. This is how they do in Lagos. It's what they've always done. So I mean, Funsho Williams lived in Dolphin Estate, which is one of the safest places to live in Lagos. And they got to him. He was strangled to death inside his bedroom.
They tied him. They tied his hand and legs in his bedroom.
And to date, no justice. To date, something that happened in 2007. This is 17 years later. To date, this is 16 years later. To date, no justice. You know, so they are very good at doing things like that. Another thing that they might probably do if the first three options don't work, if you live outside the country, especially, I think they've done this before.
Right.
They will start trying to go after you in other ways. They'll start writing letters to everybody that you are affiliated with. So if you have an employer that is publicly known, they'll start writing letters to your employer or to your university or to, if let's say someone like you, for example, person, you're in the UK, they'll start writing letters to the Home Office and calling you a terrorist. That kind of thing. That you are spreading narratives that have the capacity to create violence in Nigeria, blah, 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 blah. The same kind of framework that was used to go after people like Adeyinka grandson, who actually deserved it, by the way. They'll start looking for ways to weaponize that against other outspoken people in the diaspora. And the point of it isn't that they can go after everybody in the diaspora, but the point of it is to scare enough people.
Yeah, they just speak on the vulnerable ones. Nobody can ever try anything with me. Even if they like, they should open another office for Nigeria in the Home Office of the UK. They can't touch me. But I get what you mean. They will look for those who will be vulnerable, target them, so that they can use their story to warn others. They'll say, it's Nigeria government, be careful. I've been told to be careful all my life, David. Okay, and somehow I've kind of been stubborn. Sure, you get. So maybe because somehow I choose my battle too. Sure, you get. When I'm vulnerable, I don't fight. But when I choose to fight in any way, it means I'm not vulnerable. Or I get that. So David, you have been out of Nigeria for a while, like as you told us. Okay, it is simply because of the reality of 2020 and things that followed. Okay, our time may not allow us to go deeper into your work, so to say, but because this is the trending one, this is something that is like happening now. One of the things that people told me, especially those who went back to Nigeria, they were convinced that INEC was actually going to do an election. I wasn't. Seriously, I spent my time on Maiyegun's Diary Politico, swerving in between the two reality. Here you get. My people don't believe, right, that the Obidient could actually like surprise everyone. I did. And I continue to remind them that you may not be laughing for long. You may not be laughing for long. This thing is deeper than what you are seeing. And it's actually not about Obi himself. So somebody like yourself and so many other people who actually believe that maybe this was the last shot. Like I'll just give Nigeria last shot. After this, I'm done. Right? And today, a lot of them are now breaking PVC. In fact, distancing themselves from Nigeria, full of regret, anger, rage, just back to the square one that initially got a lot of them disinterested in Nigeria. Now with this, David, would you say there is actually a chance that the all hope is not lost after all? That people thought this is the last shot. They were right that it will be the last shot and something will give. This one is a personal observation or like your own personal view of the whole thing. Do you see any kind of please?
They were right in thinking that this was the last shot. This was the last shot, perhaps not in the way that we all envisaged, because something I think I'm coming to understand about Nigeria is that when you see 2 + 2, it doesn't always turn out to be 4 in Nigeria. It will turn out to be 4 eventually, but the route isn't linear. It goes through a lot of corner. So it might end up being the case, for example, that the election being stolen in this sort of farcical, cartoonish manner that it was stolen could very well turn into the beginning of the end of what we currently know as the Nigerian political system. It could very well be the case. We might not even see it now, but it could very well be the case that one day we'll sit down and have a conversation about this, and we will talk about this election as the trigger. We might even talk about NSAS as the pre-trigger to all of this, that was eventually what led to the collapse. Because what is becoming abundantly clear to me is that regardless of how much efforts that the abominables put into trying to get an illegitimate administration onto its feet, to swear in an illegitimate president, and to run an illegitimate government, regardless of how much effort they try and put into doing those things, the truth is that Nigeria just doesn't really have that much life inside it to support that level of chaos. It really doesn't. Financially, Nigeria is at one of its worst possible times of any. In fact, when I saw people fighting to become the president, I was almost asking myself, is it that I don't understand mathematics or something? Why would you want to be president now? Because the truth is that whoever becomes president now, I mean, God help you, because what you are inheriting, the mess that Buhari has created for you and left for you to clean up. God help you. I mean, even if it was Peter Obi, I mean, yes, he will do a few good things, but the truth is that within 2 or 3 years, you start seeing people murmuring because the magic that they're expecting would not have happened anyway. Because the truth is that the way Buhari has messed Nigeria up, it will take more than 8 years to fix it. It could take 20 years to fix it. To get back to where we were in 2014. It could take another 15, 20 years. It could easily. So these people who think that they've won, well, I don't think maybe they need to go and Google the meaning of the word Pyrrhic victory.
They say I have no idea.
Because the victory they think they've won, victory they think they've won is one of the worst victories it's possible to win. Even if you are actually sworn in, and even if you actually are able to occupy that office, your problems have just begun in so many ways.
In all honesty, and in a country that the mood is really, really not good now, right? Anybody wants,
in my opinion,
anybody who wants to be president of Nigeria should be somebody that at this point, so not everybody accepted, though, at least enjoy some level of acceptance, not the vision that we are witnessing today. Now, people can endure and say, we love him. At least we have chased all the thieves away, right? So we can manage him for some time. And like you said, the future is bleak. The politicians are not being honest. Now, with the level of the way the whole thing is going, like you said as well, right? They may not be able to.
Let me just point this out quickly. Because the thing is, there are 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria: West, Northeast, Middle Belt, Southwest, Southeast, Niger Delta. You realize that right now there is something that can be classified as an ongoing armed conflict in 5 of those 6 regions right now as we speak. Northwest, there's the banditry problem, whoever those people are, because we don't even know who they are at this point. In the Northeast, there's Boko Haram, there's ISWAP, there's all the many terror organizations from the Sahel that have set up shop there. In the Middle Belt, or stroke North Central, there's the headsmen, there's the bandits, there's Boko Haram, everybody, everything is there. In the Southeast, there's the I don't know whether they call themselves ESN or unknown gunmen, but there's a terror problem now in the Southeast. In the Niger Delta, there has always been a problem. That one is not today. Now you realize that in the Southwest, the match has just been struck. The fire hasn't caught fully, but the match has just been struck with this election. This ethnic conflict that they've ignited in Lagos, that could be what will end up setting off the Southwest on fire. And if the Southwest goes on fire, bear in mind the Southwest is by far Nigeria's most stable and wealthiest region. If you set the Southwest, specifically Lagos, on fire, that is it for Nigeria. Lagos is Nigeria. As far as the economy goes, Lagos is Nigeria. 70
fire.
Yeah, 70 kobo out of every 1 naira in the Nigerian economy is domiciled in Lagos.
It is.
If anything happens to Lagos, Nigeria, as you know, it ceases to exist. That's a fact. So the fire that these guys are playing with and the match that they've struck, I don't think even they fully comprehend the gravity.
I don't think so.
Of what they are doing. If they did, they would stop. But I don't think the penny has dropped. I don't think they still completely understand yet that what they are going to do is not just going to hurt Igbo people or any other out group. It's going to hurt us. Everybody is going to get conflamed. It's going to get consumed in this fire. I don't think that penny has dropped yet. So what I think is that the people who think that this was Nigeria's last opportunity to get it right, those people were correct. This was Nigeria's last opportunity to get it right. The chance has not fully gone away yet.
Right.
Even though the chance of the judiciary doing the right thing, we know is not very great, but we still have to wait and see. Now, if the judiciary fails and every other fail-safe that's supposed to exist within that system fails as well, and then you end up either with a military coup or with an illegitimate president that nobody wants and that will not last long because there will still be a military coup anyway, then basically, again, that will still end up being the end of Nigeria as you know it. It might not be the end of the entity called Nigeria, but it will definitely be the end of Nigeria as we know it.
As we know it now.
So those people were right. They were right. It's just that it probably didn't turn out the way they expected it to turn out, but they were still correct.
Right. David, it's been a great opportunity that I finally got a hold of you today, despite other some challenges that we would have faced, but you've actually made it worthwhile today. You've made it you make it more worthwhile for us, and hopefully we'll be lucky next time. Maybe Nigeria will still be Nigeria then, and if Nigeria is not Nigeria again, a part or so of this conversation tonight probably rebroadcasted, just to say, even though we saw it coming, we wish they would stop. Like you said, we wish they would know the consequence. You cannot win an election with propaganda and rule a country with propaganda. Abinobiso, Baba?
You cannot rule people who don't want to be ruled by you.
That would be a difficult one. Right. David, I know that a lot of Obidient probably tune in today. There are so many people who are actually angry with the system in Nigeria. They are not obedient. Okay, I am one of them, and every day, right, I kind of I prepare myself for any eventuality, so to say, and there are more like myself that are not even speaking up. Okay, but there are people who actually thought maybe something is going to happen this time, and they are not so disappointed, but somehow they feel disappointed too. Okay, like they don't believe much in what is going on, but they expected that maybe something will just happen. And everybody would just latch on that and say, maybe Nigeria deserves a second chance. But the establishment is going to always steal that joy. push everybody to that stage of the precipice, like we have to go our separate ways. I mean, mentally right now, a lot of people have disconnected from Nigeria. We all know that. So, David, for the sake of those who tune in tonight, right? A lot of them hearing you for the first time, okay? It will be kind of a pleasure. If you have any word of encouragement based on experience, and then, I don't know, some motivation, right? Sometimes I wish I would wake up in the morning, David, and I would just go on my Facebook and say, I'm feeling kind of slow this morning. Can somebody just give me one nice motivation? May I take and maintain body for this morning? So, David, if there's any obedient that's going to ask you, despite all this turmoil and how the whole thing is actually playing out, right? And listening to you with so much fact you've given to us tonight and a lot of encouragement, expose, what would your final message be for them, however this plays out? If you have anything to say, okay, I will advise you. Would you, please?
So I wouldn't call this advice, but it's just an observation that I have, and the observation is that if what you have been doing and what you are doing doesn't matter and has not made any impact and nobody cares, then these people would not have invested the amount of energy and money and viciousness into counteracting you that they have, right? If they were fighting against maybe Atiku or something, everybody would have moved on by now. There wouldn't be anything, right? But your energy is what they are terrified of the most. And I know this for a fact because these are people that I also happen to know personally. There's nothing that terrifies them like young Nigerians speaking together with any kind of unity. That terrifies them more than anything else. So even something as little as the Twitter spaces that you hold, those things terrify these people. They do. So you shouldn't feel as if what you are doing hasn't had an impact. Maybe because the election results haven't
gone the way you wanted.
Exactly. You shouldn't say, oh, okay, so that means that what these people were saying all along was actually right, that you are just internet noisemakers, but it's not true. It's not true. I can tell you that for free. They're more terrified of you than of anything else. That the very things that they spend all this energy to tell you that it doesn't matter, you're wasting your time. You people you cry blood, you just be talking, they will swear in, blah, 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 blah. If they really believed all those things they were saying, they wouldn't be saying it to you. The fact that they are spending all that energy to tell you to shut up means that they are terrified of you when you speak. So don't shut up. Keep doing what you are doing.
Apply pressure. Is that not the language?
Exactly.
Press their neck and whatever you are doing that is getting them this mad, don't stop. Yep. David, thank you for your time. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you it's going to be like 3 hours, but look at us. Yep. So I would love to have you again, especially when we have to have an insight into what is going on, right there. People need to understand is when people are informed, I believe that they can make informed decisions. And making informed decisions, they all have their own sort of a blowback. If it's good, right, we know what that wind will be like. But if misinformation, incitement are the order of the day, messing up with people's mental health and all that, right, we know the impact of that as well. And that's exactly what they want to do. Yep. So when somebody like you have the time to come around to shed light on things, people pick a lot from it. And I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Okay. Get some rest. We will talk again. I will try. Or we'll see again.
All right.
Cheers, Oma.
All right.
Thank you. That's David. Everyone who spent their evening with us this evening, thank you. A lot of you know David very well. I do. And I have interacted with David behind this a few times. But tonight, I just thought that it would be ideal to have somebody to tell you something that is real, something practicable, something that is, that you can touch, than all the lies, threats, intimidation, and so many other things that APC, Egbekegbe are pushing out there. So to every one of you, thank you for spending your evening with me. I missed you. I think you've I've made up for that tonight. Please, if you enjoyed this, okay, like this broadcast, share it. subscribe to my channel. You will never regret you'll never regret doing so. So thank you to every one of you. I'll see you some other time. Odara.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Maiyegun ti dé o ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Bó bá ṣe eré àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Maiyegun Diary, Diary politico.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Kí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń gba rìbá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o. Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀. Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Oníkan ṣáàtì ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
kì máa yí ṣe eré ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀ kì máa yí ṣe eré ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀ ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ̀ lẹ́rù o ọmọ bá dèrò kàṣàyè tú wọn síta.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra kí. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra kí. ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
tẹnitẹni ọmọ Maiyegun ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni mo fọlọ́run sọ ẹ̀ bá kìlẹ́bù lóòótọ́ olódodo ìlú ọ̀tá ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni ìwọ ṣá máa ń ṣọ́ra kò sì mọ́ bẹ̀rù bọ́tà ń lè rí bóníṣègùn lé káwọn mọ̀mọ́ fi ṣera wọn ni ó ti dẹrùn tí wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ sè mọ́bẹ̀. èèpo ọ̀bọ lọmọ bá dérò tàjẹ́ ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ ó ti jọba lórí àbínú ẹni kò sì mọ́ bùyà àìsíwọ́lu ní ẹnìkẹ́ ìgbódì ẹyin lábàrá o ó kó ẹni tó bá dán wò á kàmù. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì o ẹni bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dèrò òní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì. Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì. ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.